It really did reveal the importance of having the candidates all up on the same stage at the same time to discuss their ideas, because there are such huge differences between the two groups of Democrats, the more establishment or centrist Democrats and the progressives. And I think the DNC is purposely avoiding that type of scenario because they don't want to draw attention to how much better the progressives are. But anyway, I'm gonna make that case throughout a series of stories, so let's get started.
We are the most powerful country on earth. We should be leading the world to a global energy transition, and you have a president who thinks it's not real. That is idiotic.
That's Bernie Sanders sharing his views on climate change from outer space. I'm just kidding. He was at the CNN town hall on climate, and he was actually a huge influence throughout the entire 7 hours that this took place. 10 of the candidates participated in this, and the reason why I say he was such a huge influence is because he, out of all of the candidates, had the most robust and comprehensive climate change plan. He took from the Green New Deal and turned it into actual legislation. And so the candidates were asked about that throughout the night, which I thought was important. Now, Jay Inslee was also mentioned quite a bit throughout the event. Governor Jay Inslee dropped out of the race in August after putting out more than 200 pages of climate change policy, all of it ambitious and detailed. And so the moderators would, the CNN host would ask specific questions about points that Inslee had made. The whole fact that this event is happening, I would say, Jay Inslee deserves credit because it was something that he pushed for. Now, Inslee sat down with Senator Elizabeth Warren in Seattle last week as she was crafting her climate plan. He chatted with former Texas Representative Beto O'Rourke, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Senators Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, and Amy Klobuchar. Former Housing Secretary Julian Castro has been looking for me, Inslee told Vox Wednesday, but they haven't been able to connect yet. So the fact that they're going to him and asking for advice, I think is fascinating, and you can see that some of his ideas were certainly expressed in the answers from some of these candidates last night.
Yeah, so I'm going to declare Jay Inslee the most successful candidate to ever drop out. He has technically a failed presidential candidate campaign, and it didn't last that long. I mean, he dropped out 5 months before any of the voting began. So you can say it's a blip on the radar, but of all the different so-called failed campaigns, man, has he found success in branding himself, I think rightfully so, as the leader in climate change policy. And so now when everybody says, as the guy who dropped out said, right? And I went to the guy who dropped out and got advice from him because he knows this issue so well. So that's a great job of, look, honestly, a little bit of marketing, right? But also because he has a substance to back it up. So great job by Inslee. I'd say like the only other candidate that reminds me of this that didn't have any tangible success in the votes or even getting to the votes was Larry Lessig last time around when he ran on the issue of money in politics, and Hillary Clinton responded by putting out a huge campaign platform on that. The day that Lessig entered the race, Bernie Sanders moved it up his priority list, et cetera. So sometimes these failed campaigns could actually have great results, and sometimes not. I mean, the exact opposite of that is probably Seth Moulton's campaign from this year. Exactly.
Yeah. So I do want to, before we go on to more of the substance, I do want to point out something that was pretty jarring to me. I didn't notice it last night, but I did notice it after Nando Vila, who comes and hosts with us quite often, posted about this on Instagram. So let's go to the first graphic. This is a lower third from the climate town hall that CNN had put together. How big a crisis is the climate? I don't. Am I being too harsh? This is.
Yeah, I hear you, but look, it is too harsh, and I'll tell you why. So look, I get it; it's a bad graphic, but you have to give CNN a lot of credit. 7-hour town hall on climate change, and no one thinks that that's necessarily going to be a ratings gangbuster. They did that and gave it that much space. It was bold, and And by the way, a lot of the questions, some of the original couple of hours were so and usual Republican talking points with how are you going to pay for that, blah blah blah, that type of questioning. But most of the experts that looked at it thought that they did a pretty good town hall. I'm just keeping it real, right? Mm-hmm. And they had all these 10 candidates on. They rotated them through, but very importantly, they also had the audience ask questions. And I don't know if it was their curation or not, but certainly I have to give them credit for the audience questions were excellent.
Mm-hmm. So let's get to some of the differences with the candidates and some of the themes that I think are important to bring up and pick apart. So Klobuchar said that she supported individual efforts like the ones Governor Inslee talks about so well. Things like even using cold water for the clothes saves 5 times the energy. So her emphasis in the town hall, and I think that this is exactly what a centrist Democrat would pivot to in order to prevent angering fossil fuel donors. Mm-hmm. Don't attack the fossil fuel industry, just pivot to individuals and what they can do on a personal level to help save the environment. But let's keep it real. That is not nearly enough, not even close. And so, the fact that she mentioned that, we should wash our clothes with cold water, that's not gonna solve climate change, which is why it is important to have, again, all the candidates up on the same stage so people in the audience, American voters, can see the very significant differences between these candidates. Pointing to the average American and telling them, don't use plastic straws, don't use plastic bags, and wash your clothes with cold water, those are all great things, but it's not nearly enough, and it's a way of skirting the real issue, which is the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah. Well, look, a lot of them didn't, and I of course I agree with you. I mean, that's why we're trying to put together a climate change debate. That's our ideal, and I'd love to have them all on the stage at the same time. We're doing it at tyt.com/town hall. We call it town hall because we can't do a debate. We're going to do a town hall, but the debate would the DNC doesn't want to happen, right? But look, I hope a lot of people watch the 7 hours, but it's unlikely. If you had them all in the same room and compare and contrast and had great moderators, and we're working on all of that for you guys because you've raised a lot of money for this purpose. And look, I've got a couple of candidates who say if others are willing to go, we'll come. So it's kind of starting to build a little bit here, but it is very difficult to put together when the DNC says they'll punish anyone who participates in a climate change debate. But the Klobuchars of the world, if you take fossil fuel money and you don't have any bold plans, how are you going to get out of the climate change, debacle that we're in? I mean, it's an absolute catastrophe for the world, and you can't moderate your way out of that, right? Yeah. I've got a moderate plan for an extreme disaster.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense. But look, if she thinks she can defend that with real expert moderators, I would love that because I want to give everyone an opportunity to be heard out. But I think she's kind of a figment of the media's creation, who's like screaming for more moderation. It doesn't appear that there's a lot of momentum for that. But hey, at least CNN put her on. She got to make her case, and you saw that it was a more modest case, let's put it that way, than some of the others like Bernie Sanders.
One more thing about Klobuchar, and it's more a statement, a general statement about centrist Democrats. Her statement, which of course puts the onus on individuals as opposed to corporate donors, is so symbolic of everything corporate/centrist Democrats stand for, right? This is not a corporation problem. This is not a big business problem. This is a you problem. So you, as an American worker, as an American voter, you need to change your habits. Now, you can make a case for that, but that's not even half of what needs to be done, right? That's a tiny smidge of what needs to be done. So I just wanted to mention
and as
that.
usual, there's plenty of progressive candidates who are going after the fossil fuel companies very aggressively. And look, this is super important context. More aggressively than I have ever seen in my lifetime by an order of magnitude. I mean, Bernie Sanders is talking about putting fossil fuel executives in jail.
Yes.
Elizabeth Warren's talking about massive civil penalties, and Andrew Yang is going after them fiercely, etc. So, I mean, this is totally unprecedented. Until 2016, when Bernie started doing this, it was totally forbidden in American politics to ever challenge corporate power. And now we're in the midst of a real debate about, are some corporations literally destroying the planet?
So let's keep talking about Bernie Sanders. And this is an excerpt from a Vox piece that I thought was fascinating and very strong. Let's go to graphic 6. Sanders proposed the only plan so far that rivals Inslee's in scope and ambition. And it contained a few provisions that no other campaign has touched, most notably a plan to semi-nationalize the nation's electric utilities.
So look, it's a complicated topic, but let me just simplify a little bit for time's sake here. One way of looking at it is, you say, well, that sounds socialist, I can't believe it, et cetera. No, Sarah Palin in Alaska had increased the amount of revenue that the citizens of Alaska got from their own oil, because the gas under Pennsylvania, the oil in Alaska, are the people's oil, the people's gas, right? So I remember a Republican governor in Pennsylvania said, well, oh no, I got to give tax breaks to all these fossil fuel companies, otherwise they'll leave. Where are they gonna go? The gas is under Pennsylvania, right? So it's such a total lie, because they take corporate donations and sell them out. Sarah Palin got to 80% approval rating in Alaska by doing the most socialist program I have seen in my lifetime, where she said, no, I'm gonna just take more of the profits from the oil companies and give it to the citizens. Okay, that was the only positive thing she's ever done, but that's what made her so popular. It is our resources, and we get to decide whether we want to use them or not use them, and who should profit off of them.
Vox also writes that Sanders benefited from following Biden, who was as rambling and unfocused as he has been this whole campaign season. By contrast, Sanders was sharp and on message with easy command over the details of his plan.
Yeah, I mean,
he wrote the damn bill.
Yeah. The double standard that the media uses for different people is maddening. If Bernie Sanders had drawn on a National Weather Service map with a Sharpie, he'd be disqualified. Everybody would say, no, it's over. If he had said,
including us.
Yeah, and if he had said when he was in New Hampshire that he was in Vermont, I mean, even though Bernie's from Vermont, or maybe because he's from Vermont, you're like, oh, he's losing it, disqualified, old senile, blah, blah, blah. You know, Jennifer Rubin wouldn't have written 18 articles about it in the Washington Post on one day alone, right? But Biden does these things and they're like, that's good old Joe, doesn't know anything about fossil fuel companies, doesn't know anything about climate change, good old Joe, right? No, what's the good old Joe part about it? Trump does it. I mean, he's a lunatic, and nobody ever takes any action. But Bernie, I mean, man, has he put that H thing to bed?
Yeah.
Like, there's two candidates in this election, Trump and Biden, that have that issue in spades. Bernie's not among them, sharp as he's ever been, according to all objective analysts.
And during the town hall, he said, quote, I spent my entire life fighting for workers. Let me be clear, the coal miners in this country, the men and women who work on the oil rigs, they are not my enemy. My enemy is climate change. So I think it's incredibly important to make that clear, because the talking point that's been used by the right wing, and it's been used successfully, has been that the Democrats want to take your jobs away. They want to leave you high and dry with nothing to fall back on. And Bernie Sanders is making it clear, not only through that statement, but also through his actual legislation, his proposal, that there is a jobs guarantee, that no one is going to be left without a job, and that the enemy here is not the workers who, in a lot of cases, lose their lives when they're working in those coal mines. So that was excellent. He did a great job last night, and we will talk about him more later in the show.
And just real quick, it's not just loose talk, it's in the bill to transition those workers and get them equal or better pay in renewable energy companies. So Trump just goes, oh, I'm gonna save coal, and coal jobs go completely eliminated under Trump's watch, and he doesn't do anything. It was just all verbal diarrhea. Whereas Bernie Sanders has an actual plan to get you better jobs.
Exactly. And then finally, just this piece of information that I think is important. There were some differences with the candidates, obviously, but all 10 candidates want to restrict drilling on public lands. Senator Bernie Sanders wants criminal prosecution of climate polluters. Kamala Harris wants to sue them. Booker and Sanders so far have said they would ban fracking. They're the only two who have been incredibly clear on that. So credit where credit is due.
Yeah, so Cory Booker, great job on the fracking ban. And I'm sorry, I said earlier about suing and said it was Elizabeth Warren. It's actually Kamala Harris, and that corrected it right there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so with that said, let's move on to specific candidates. We don't have time to get into all 10 of them, but there were some moments involving Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Biden that I want to talk about. So let's start off with Elizabeth Warren. The Trump administration, of course, is trying to mischaracterize individuals like Elizabeth Warren and what they want to do with climate change or to combat climate change. And one of the things that they keep latching onto is that these lefties are going after your straws, they're going after your hamburgers. And so in an effort to push this message out, they took a portion of Elizabeth Warren's answer from the CNN town hall last night, and they edited it down to make it appear as though the only thing she's focusing on is attacking your burgers. So here is what the Trump campaign released, and then we're gonna show you the full context of what she said. Take a look.
Be in the business of telling you what kind of light bulb you can have.
Oh, come on, give me a break.
Is that a yes?
No, look, there are a lot of ways that we try to change our energy consumption and our pollution. And God bless all of those ways. Some of it is with light bulbs, some of it is on straws, some of it, is on cheeseburgers, right? There are a lot of different pieces to this, and I get that people are trying to find the part that they can work on and what can they do, and I'm in favor of that, and I'm gonna help and I'm gonna support.
So that was what the Trump campaign released, but they did not include the rest of her answer, which I actually think was a strong answer. It goes back to a point I've been trying to make about how combating climate change is not just about individual actions. In fact, that's a small part of it. The real issue is the fossil fuel industry, and that's what you're about to hear in the rest of Elizabeth Warren's answer.
And I get that people are trying to find the part that they can work on and what can they do, and I'm in favor of that, and I'm gonna help and I'm gonna support. But understand, this is exactly what the fossil fuel industry hopes we're all talking about. That's what they want us to talk about. This is your problem. They want to be able to stir up a lot of controversy around your light bulbs, around your straws, and around your cheeseburgers. When 70% of the pollution, of the carbon that we're throwing into the air comes from 3 industries, and we can set our targets and say by 2028, 2030, and 2035, no more. Think about that right there. Now, the other 30% we still got to work on. Oh no, we don't stop at 70%. But the point is that's where we need to focus. And why don't we focus there? It's corruption. It's these giant corporations that keep hiring the PR firms that does it. Everybody has fun with it, right? Gets it all out there. So we don't look at who's still making the big bucks of polluting our earth.
So she actually went further in discussing the fossil fuel industry and how it has corrupted lawmakers. I want to give you one other quote. She said, and this is graphic 3, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to attack this corruption head on in Washington and say enough of having the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry, write all of our laws in this area. No more, no more. That was, in my opinion, her strongest moment during this town hall.
No, that was fantastic. And so, look, guys, I'm guilty too, and the Republicans make a huge stink out of it. So we all try hard, and there's different things that we're not. Have you ever thrown a Coke can or a beer can in non-recycling? Yeah, sometimes there's situations where there's no recycling around. What are you gonna do? Carry it around 3 different states and until you find a recycling one? Yeah, sometimes that happens. In one of our shows on Old School, I talked about I hate paper straws. I can't stand them. Okay, I had a cheeseburger for lunch. So that doesn't mean that you go, okay, then give up, then don't do anything, right? No, try to recycle when you can, etc. But when you're doing everything that you can, even if you're imperfect, what are the areas that you could have the biggest impact on? And that's where you gotta keep it real. Government has the biggest impact because the decisions it can make about those industries. So if 3 industries cause 70% of the problem, I love you, try to use paper straws instead of plastic straws, and I'll try too, okay? But we should spend a lot more of our time and energy focusing on the people that are causing the overwhelming amount of the problem, right? So and that's obviously the fossil fuel industry. It's the most obvious thing in the world. The reason Trump lies about it by deceptively editing that video is they get money from the fossil fuel industry. They are the bad guys. So the Trump team, and by the way, it's not just Trump, and a lot of the media try to paint it that way. The entire Republican Party,
yes,
they all take money from the fossil fuel companies. And by the way, half the Democratic Party, okay? They take money from those companies. And so to answer Anderson Cooper's question from 2016 when he incredulously asked Bernie Sanders, are you saying it affects their votes? Of course it affects their votes. Why do you think the oil companies give those guys, when you count all the lobbying, billions of dollars to politicians for their health? For our health? No, it's to buy them off, and they do. As Bernie Sanders pointed out, when you include not just subsidies, but tax breaks, the fossil fuel companies get $400 billion a year. Why are we paying the most profitable companies in the world? I mean, that is bare minimum. I mean, he talks about phasing that out. I'm sure there's practical reasons for that, but that's a situation where I would be to the left of Bernie Sanders. I would want to stop that on day one.
You have to. I mean, it's really the only way you can get anything accomplished. If you allow this corrupt system to take place, then you're not gonna have any lawmakers on your side, even as they argue that they're part of your party and they wanna fight with you.
Yeah,
so
now if you don't, I mean, look, if politicians take money from fossil fuel companies, you know who they're gonna serve. They're not gonna serve you, they're not gonna serve the planet. They're gonna serve the people writing them checks. And everyone except the folks on TV know this, but that's why I'm giving CNN credit and a lot of the Democratic candidates credit here, because finally we're having a conversation about the real problem. You can have all the cheeseburgers in the world that you want, as long as we actually go after the fossil fuel companies creating most of the pollution.
All right, we got to take a break, but we're going to continue this discussion by focusing on Bernie Sanders and Biden. Speaking of contributions from the fossil fuel industry, there was a lot of drama in his portion of the town hall. So come back, we'll be back after this break.
Hey Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT, TYT.
The place is like 95% TYT on.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Cenk and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
The people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
People still don't know what the word feminist actually means. Not even that, people are still angered by the word.
People think feminist is a bad word, but it's not.
There are gradations, there are different waves. The people who are against gender equality love to use like militant feminists as the representatives of all feminists. It's untrue.
I don't know why you'd be threatened by strong women unless you were an incredibly weak man. If you don't have equal rights, or you're not treated the same way, well, wouldn't you be angry?
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation. And it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
What he did to women has no place in America. At least he wasn't targeting children.
Just because she's 18, now she doesn't matter? Step out of your social media bubble, Tim.
A new party game is taking America by storm. It's called Cards Against Womanity. One player reads the prompt.
The pedophile who got off easiest is blank.
The others fill in the blank.
Roman Polanski.
Woody Allen. R. Kelly.
Then yell at your friends till the buzzer sounds.
Polanski still makes movies every few years in Europe.
Woody Allen still makes movies every single year in America. R. Kelly peed on a child, and he just released a Christmas album.
The fun never ends.
The worst perv of all the pervs is blank.
The biggest hypocrite wearing a Time's Up pin is blank.
James Franco. The perv who's been treated most unfairly is blank. Aziz?
Believe women, Tim.
Play as individuals.
When Ben Affleck came forward, you guys drove him away, and that
This
was
is why women don't speak out, because of people like you. You don't
your mind. There's no way you can ignore the intersection.
We're
trying to be allies here.
The fun goes on and on.
You have no idea about it.
Cards Against Womanity.
Who won? Nobody.
Don't forget to check back for daily expansion packs.
Dan Harmon? I liked him.
But that's not all. Order today and we'll throw in Guess Who? Sexual Misconduct Edition.
Does your perv prey on children?
No. Did he grope someone and have a dynamite recipe for flatbread?
I don't know who this guy is. Does he have a terrifying button in his office?
Yes.
Is it Donnie?
Yes.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Man, there's a lot of Klobuchar hate on here. So there's two themes in the comments. First, Megan says, stop blaming the average person for what is caused 70% by corporations.
Yes.
Okay, and a lot of people agree with that. DDNYC writes in, I've been washing my clothes in cold water for the last 50 years and still the icebergs are melting. LOL. And Lynn agrees, she's been a vegetarian, washing clothes in cold water for decades, etc. And we still have climate crisis. Now on to Klobuchar, Kenny Doe says, the most shocking thing about Klobuchar's appearance last night was finding out that she's still running for president.
I know, it's...
Katie Nicole 87 asks, how on earth did Amy Klobuchar qualify for the debate and Tulsi didn't? Well, look, CNN did it based on polling.
Yeah.
And in the polling, she does get to 2%. Is that because every media figure loves Klobuchar? Yeah, partly, because they're always giving her positive press. Oh, Klobuchar could be president. Klobuchar. Did they do that for Tulsi? No. For Tulsi, they say, oh, Assad, Bashar al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad, Bashar, every time.
That's true. And also, in a situation like this, Tulsi Gabbard has way more interesting things to say than Klobuchar does. Klobuchar offers nothing to the conversation. So it's frustrating, but look, if it were up to me, especially when it comes to these upcoming debates, people are not gonna like what I'm about to say, but I would have cut more people from it.
Yeah,
let's have the top 5. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, I don't
like
agree
these
at all.
vanity projects are becoming incredibly annoying at this point.
Yeah. All right, that's all right. Normal disagreement. Toma Nandona writes in, Klobuchar's ideas on climate change are like handing out duct tape on the Titanic. We got this, dog. Let's just tape it up. It's gonna be okay. And not a bad point. Let me just end on Twitter here. VVV0 says, can I get a shout out, Cenk? Today's my birthday and I'm feeling pretty crap about it.
Why?
Wrong, you're not feeling great because we just wished you a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Okay, all right, that's enough of that. Okay, Eclectic Miss Chelania says.
No fun today.
I know, right? What is wrong with me today? Anyway, Eclectic Miss Chelania says, I'm with Anna. How big a crisis is climate is really weak sauce question. Did the next graphic ask, is water wet? Okay, so a lot of you with strong opinions, bless your hearts.
I love it.
TYT.com/townhall, let's make that happen.
All right, so let's talk a little more about Bernie Sanders because the right wing is smearing him as usual. Well, the right wing and the left wing smear him. But in this case, it's one of the most ridiculous smears. So let's go to the CNN town hall. During the CNN town hall on climate, Bernie Sanders was asked a very provocative question, and his answer has outraged people on the right. Take a look.
I realize this is a poisonous topic for politicians, but it's crucial to face. Empowering women and educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign to enact. Would you be courageous enough to discuss this issue and make it a key feature of a plan to address climate catastrophe?
Well, Martha, the answer is yes. And the answer has everything to do with the fact that women in the United States of America, by the way, have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions. And the Mexico City Agreement, which denies American aid to those organizations around the world that allow women to have abortions or even get involved in birth control, to me is totally absurd. So I think, especially in poor countries around the world, where women do not necessarily want to have large numbers of babies, and where they can have the opportunity through birth control to control the number of kids they have, something I very, very strongly support.
I personally thought that was a good answer. And the reason why I think it's a good answer is because, look, if you buy into the notion that overpopulation is the real problem here, and honestly, I don't think that's the heart of the climate crisis. What would you do about population control? You can't force people to avoid having kids. I mean, we saw the ramifications of that in China. Now there's this huge imbalance with the one-child policy when it comes to the sex of people. There are more men, way more men than women, and that's gonna be a disaster.
You know how many more? There are 40 million more men in China than women. Epic disaster.
So his answer about empowering women to make the right choices for themselves is absolutely correct, because there are people living in countries where they don't have reproductive rights, they don't have access to birth control, and so they end up having children that they don't necessarily want to have. So I actually really liked his answer. I liked that he pivoted to reproductive rights. But then there are people on the right, people like S.E. Cupp, who didn't even take the time to read his Green New Deal policy, which says nothing about population control, and had a meltdown on Twitter. So let me read you her tweets.
Of course she did. Oh, what a moderate Republican. We have a moderate Republican, everybody.
I know.
God, cable news loves those. Okay.
So she writes, how do you not say unequivocally no to the question of whether you support the idea of curbing population growth through abortion to reduce climate change? Well,
that's not what she said.
Yeah, I know. She's completely smearing him. Well, watch. This is apparently how. And then she followed that with, let's just state for the record, talking about needing population control through abortion. Who is she, Trump? For the sake of climate, is talking about eugenics. No, it's not. The fact that Bernie Sanders is willing to entertain this vile idea is not only disgusting, it should be disqualifying. Well,
oh, shut up.
So let me just, abortion is not eugenics, right? Eugenics is something very specific. Eugenics is the science of selective and controlled breeding in an effort to increase human characteristics and traits deemed desirable. Eugenics is not meant for, lowering the population.
I hate having these fake debates about fake points by dumbass Republicans, right? So she asked, hey, should we do something about population growth? She didn't ask, should we force people to have abortions? She didn't ask that. We just showed you the tape. You could rewind and watch, right? Mm-hmm. So Bernie didn't say, yes, I would like to control population through abortions. He didn't say that. What he said is, I want to give people the choice in a free country to do anything they like with their bodies. You know who agrees with that, S.E. Cupp? I know almost no one on cable news. Everybody, oh no, moderate Republicans, I love moderate Republicans. To be fair, most people on cable news are also pro-choice. Okay, but anyway, I can't help but be fair even when I'm worked up, okay?
You should be.
But 71% of Americans agree with that, 71%. So oh my God, I can't believe that these monsters who want to do eugenics. No, they don't. They just want a woman to be able to choose what to do with her body. That's it. So you're twisting it on purpose and misleading people, and because Republicans have no actual points to make. Okay, S.E. Cupp, What is your stupid ass party doing about climate change? Nothing. They just go to the oil companies, go, oh, I drink your milk. And they suck up the dollars from the oil companies.
And not with a paper straw.
Okay, that's right, with a plastic straw, goddammit. And so, and then, so you want to distract people by pretending to say that Bernie Sanders said something he clearly didn't say. We just showed you the goddamn tape. So I don't want to have an argument about eugenics, false argument, nonsense. But what drives me crazy is how much Washington loves people like S.E. Cupp. Oh, a disingenuous Republican pretending to be a moderate while destroying the planet. Oh, that's so good. Put her all over TV. Has she ever gotten ratings? Never. She's worked at like 8 different cable news companies and never gotten any ratings at all. But they're like, oh, it's a moderate Republican. Yes, let's put her on. Can we find any others? There's like 3 left in the country.
Yeah, look, I'm just gonna reiterate. And I know that there are hosts on cable news, not all of them, but people like S.E. Cupp who just refuse to read policy. I mean, you should be required as part of your job to sit down and read policy. There is a very comprehensive, robust policy proposal by Bernie Sanders in an effort to combat climate change. Nowhere in that legislation does it say anything about population control. Nowhere in that legislation does Bernie Sanders say, no, we need to push for abortion so we can have population control. It's just ridiculous. They're just, like, the thing that frustrates me the most, and this goes back to a theme that I complain about a lot on this show. In this country, you get rewarded for being lazy, for being dumb, for being disingenuous, for being a bad person. Like in this country, if you actually have intellectual curiosity, you do the hard work, you learn about the policy, you learn about the legislation, you sit down, you actually read it word for word, where do you end up? You end up somewhere in independent media where you make no money and you constantly get demonetized. But if you're like S.E. Cupp and you're a disingenuous hack, then yeah, you fail upward. You're right, she's been on how many cable networks now?
Yeah, so, okay, look, last thing about this. Unfortunately, this is greatly aided and abetted by the rest of the media. Why? I've now seen like 12 headlines of Sanders under fire for remarks about population control. Under fire, okay? No, the planet's under fire. The Republicans made up a stupid talking point. One commentator said it, and the rest of you, like lemmings, helped the Republicans with their nonsense talking points. You think people read into the article? No, they see the headline and they go, oh, I guess Bernie wants to kill everybody. And so his idea for fixing climate change is making everybody do mandatory abortions. I don't know, I saw the headline in every major media organization. Yeah. I mean, the degree to which they are unfair to Bernie Sanders is so preposterous that when you point out, hey, listen, you're saying the opposite of what he said. They're like, oh, now you're complaining about the media, Bernie Sanders. Oh, what a sad thing to do, to complain about the media. So that's also your fault. You shouldn't complain about the things that we write about you that are totally and utterly false.
Right. And I mean, I honestly don't think it's a mistake that out of all the candidates, he tends to get the most provocative questions. He gets a population control question in this town hall. He got the question about whether or not it makes sense to give inmates the right to vote. And that hurt him temporarily.
Here are correct headlines for editors out there. Republicans smear Bernie Sanders with something he didn't say. That would be a correct headline. Instead, you did their job for them by, in the form of a question, like Fox News does. Remember when Jon Stewart used to make fun of that? Did Bernie Sanders say kill people to control the climate? Did he? I don't know. S.E. Cupp asked the question, said it, so I don't know. I'm just putting it in the headline. I don't know, right? So write accurate headlines. And by the way, call Republicans and conservatives what they actually are. They're the anti-freedom party. They don't want you to have the freedom to control your own body. Of course, if you're a guy, you have all the freedom in the world. But if you're a woman, you don't have that freedom. So they're against freedom. So you don't get to claim you're in favor of freedom if you're against it. I mean, the most core freedom in the world. And the big government Republicans who want to be inside your uterus. That's a fact. If it makes you uncomfortable, that's your problem. But it is a fact, they're for giant government. No, you do this, and your doctor does this, and I put you in prison. That's big government, that's what it is. So try to be accurate for once in your life. I know when it comes to Bernie Sanders, you're all so incredibly biased that you can't see straight, but give it a shot.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to discuss Biden's portion of this climate town hall, and we're gonna talk about his source of funding, Jerome's. Come right back.
This is the wildest, craziest motherfucking race I've ever seen. What are we gonna do? Not make brackets? Let us whisper victory.
Wait a minute! All of a sudden, here comes Bernie!
Good night and good luck, everybody. These are the two most unpopular candidates we have ever had in our nation's history.
Jesus Christ, there is significant boos every time Hillary Clinton's name is mentioned.
Everyone I know is voting for her out of fear. He was looking at Donald Trump's hair like it was cotton candy.
That's right. Get him out. Get him out.
It's political game. They don't care about lies.
Bow your head.
This is what we mean by the establishment press.
Do you trust the establishment media?
Yeah, no.
We have a good time on this show. What else are you gonna watch?
They did 100 squats a day for 30 days straight. I was like, how hard can that be? That doesn't sound very hard. So I'm gonna try to do this for 30 days and see if there's any difference in my physique.
3 weeks later.
Steve, how is your exercise regimen coming along with your squats?
No, I did 100, 100, 100, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're pacing yourself.
Yeah.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation. And it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Yes, President Donald Trump has made life hell. Everything is always about race because the sitting president, known for his trigger Twitter fingers, somehow kept it tight-lipped over the Nazis who returned to Charlottesville last week.
If Republican politicians genuinely cared about all lives, we wouldn't be facing the largest wealth redistribution in American history.
Trump, who claims he wants to make America great again, but isn't really interested in protecting the little guy, just withdrew Obama's memo and told collectors that they're free to go back to screwing over struggling Americans with fees.
This decision will impact far and wide, especially, and listen for the irony here, those who already pay more out of pocket each year due to soaring internet package prices.
There's a ton of racist monuments in America. White supremacy is still put up on a pedestal.
Of course, more white people are killed by police. White people make up more than 75% of the US population.
So you can justify your bigotry and feel better about saying these things at dinner, polite dinner conversation with a side of racism and home fries.
Does the president normally watch these kind of anti-Muslim videos that have been posted by this group?
Here's a list of what the president watches every day. It goes cartoons, Fox and Friends cartoons, followed by, at noon, it was a bunch of Civil War documentaries for like 6 hours. But he claps at all the wrong times.
All right, we are back. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you. There's a lot of positive Anna comments. I'm trying to find one that isn't, so I don't know. Let's find. Okay, Mike says this might be the best Anna's hair has ever looked, and that's a high bar.
Man, thank you, I appreciate that.
Interesting. Norse Valkyrie says, I think Anna should sing every day. That wasn't half bad.
I can't believe how well that, so I'm a little under the weather, and I think that's why it sounded decent. I'm a terrible singer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree. Okay, and hashtag, by the way, it was sounds as good as she looks.
Thank you.
Okay, and by the way, I'm kidding. I didn't even pay attention to your singing. So I have no opinion
or anything
on it.
I say.
Okay, what? Okay, What is it? Can I get a comment that isn't Anna love? Okay, Gene Bradshaw. I just love Anna Kasparian throwing shade on SE Cup. By the way, hack was the right term for her. Okay, all right, you guys love her. Oh, YouTube super chat has begun. Dark Matter says, I can't handle Joe anymore. I got out of politics because of Joe. Okay. MSN says, for Anna's anger, a smile. For Cenk's sarcasm and predictions. Oh, I see. That's why you're using YouTube super chat. Thank you guys, appreciate it. Speaking of which, tonight, last half hour, we're taking YouTube super chat questions only. You could ask us anything you want on YouTube super chat. We'll answer most of them. All right, I want to tell you about Road to Revolution. The latest episode is up. That's tracking the 2020 races, not just the presidential race, but all the races. Jamal Bowman running against Elliot Engel in New York. That one is up, and it is on tyt.com/R2R, as in the number 2. So Road to Revolution, R2R. tyt.com/R2R. It's a great video. I wish more people would watch it. It's fantastic. I watched that video and I got super pumped up. And I'm like, man, we got to take out all these incumbents. Jamal is amazing. And if you want to see Jamal, by the way, he's going to be with me in New York. That's next Monday. It's coming up in a couple of days in Bryant Park at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you're in New York, come to Bryant Park, see Jamal and I. We're doing a TYT meetup. And then in Houston, obviously we're covering debates. I'm going to be at the debates. We're doing a meetup in Houston as well. tyt.com/rally to come to our meetup in Houston. And meanwhile in the studio, Anna, Emma, John, and Nando will be covering it at tyt.com/live. Not only the lead up to the debate, but immediately afterwards, analysis, including me in the spin room.
I love that picture of John. I can't get enough of it. Look at him. Get it, John.
Very suave.
All right, and then I also want to let you guys know about Happy Half Hour. Every Thursday, Brett does his show Happy Half Hour, and I think it's such an important show to watch if you want to remain sane, because it's fun, it's news that's not related to politics. Sometimes there's some political stuff in there, but today he'll have musicians on, musicians James Maslow and Eugene Ugorsky.
It almost sounds like Ugorsky. I do.
Yeah, I'm into it. And I like that shirt. That Hawaiian shirt is boss.
And he's got a John Idarola-like look there.
So if you're a member, you can check it out right after the main show. It's archived, so you can check it out whenever you want. Just go to tyt.com/Brett to join if you're interested.
Oh yeah, if you use the host names, not mine, but Anna, Brett, John, etc. That's a great way to sign up, and they get credit for it.
Yeah, exactly. So check it out. I love his show, and he will make an appearance on this show later today.
All right, rock and roll.
All right, so let's talk about Joe Biden. Joe Biden caught a little heat during the CNN climate town hall, and it was all over how his campaign is funded. Now, he was planning on going to 2 different fundraisers that were fueled by fossil fuel money. And so he was asked about that. And after we watch the clip, I'm gonna give you some more information about the audience member who asked the question. Take a look.
How can we trust you to hold these corporations and executives accountable for their crimes against humanity when we know that tomorrow you are holding a high-dollar fundraiser hosted by Andrew Goldman, a fossil fuel executive?
He's not a fossil fuel executive, I'm told. He is not a fossil fuel executive. And the fact of the matter is that what we talk about is, what are we going to do about those corporations? What have we done? And everywhere along the way, for example, I've argued and pushed for us suing those executives who are engaged in pollution.
What Andrew is saying is, if you're going to a fundraiser that's given in part by this guy who has a company that is pulling up natural gas, are you the right guy to go after these?
Well, I didn't realize he does that. I was told, if you look at the SEC filings, he's not listed as one of those executives. That's what we look at, the SEC filings. Who are those executives? I've kept that pledge, period.
So are you going to look at that fundraiser tomorrow night?
I'm going to look at what you just told me and find out if that's accurate, yes.
Okay, I think it's pretty accurate.
So Anderson Cooper is right. It is accurate, and the fundraiser is going to be held by an individual who is very much tied to the fossil fuel industry. His name is Andrew Goldman. Now, we're going to get to that in just a second, but first, I want to give some credit to the individual who asked the question. His name is Isaac Larkin, and he's a 27-year-old molecular biology PhD student from Northwestern University. And he gave a quote that I think is incredible and important to share with you. He says, quote, "About an hour before that town hall actually started, I got a message from Zena, a Sunrise Press team member, with a link to that Intercept article. It was an Intercept article written by Ryan Grimm. And she basically asked, hey, if you're willing, do you think there might be a way to incorporate this in your question? In basically 10 minutes, I rewrote the last sentence of the question." And so the article that's being referenced there is an Intercept piece that mentioned the fossil fuel money that Biden is tied to.
So this is, it's a little bit of a stretch and it isn't. So I'm being honest about it. But first of all, Ryan Grimm's a TYT contributor. You guys paid for that years ago, right? When we did the fundraising for the reporters. One of the contributors we hired was David Sirota, who's now on Bernie Sanders' team. And another one was Sean King, another one was Dylan Ratigan. Dylan wound up running for Congress, Sean wound up doing his own thing. The one guy that remains is Ryan Grimm. And Ryan Grimm wrote that story. He's the one that broke the story about Kavanaugh, etc. So look, he might have done it anyway because he works at the Intercept, he's their Washington bureau chief, he's one of the best reporters in the country. But I think you get to take a little pride that you got Ryan hired here, and he does amazing videos for us. You should check it out on facebook.com/rebelhq. And he's always talking to and getting great interviews with some of the top legislators in the country. And in this case, if he hadn't written that article and they hadn't read it, and Sunrise hadn't gotten it to that young man who asked that question, well, it wouldn't have been this giant controversy that Joe Biden has to deal with now, and he should have to deal with it, because that is the problem. So look, I want to be clear. What Biden's leaning on is a technicality, and Anderson Cooper came back at the end and said, yes, technically Andrew Goldman is not an executive at a fossil fuel company now, but he's the co-founder of the company, of Western LNG. It's a liquefied natural gas production company. He's also a co-founder of D. Cordova Goldman Capital Management, and they have invested in natural resources and energy as well. In other words, fossil fuels. So Biden going, well, hey, technically he's not an executive right now, according to the SEC filings. He founded the company. That's a fossil fuel company. Yeah. Of course that counts.
By the way, I apologize, I made a mistake and I want to clarify. The Intercept article was written by a different writer, Akilah Lacey is her name. Ryan Grimm tweeted it.
Yes.
And that was sent to
But I want to be clear about that too, and thank you for giving credit to Akilah. Ryan is the Washington bureau chief, so they all report into Ryan. So he's the one that assigns the stories, etc. And so he's the manager of that entire team.
Yeah.
So they both get tremendous credit. Wonderful job by the Intercept there.
So it is incredible because, look, Biden has had a long-term relationship with Andrew Goldman. He knows who Andrew Goldman is. He knows what his bio is. He knows the way that this guy makes his money. I mean, look, it's not 2008. People hold politicians accountable in a completely different way these days. People fact check, people read, people want to know how these politicians are funded. Corruption really wasn't front and center of the political discussion back in 2008. So if Biden thinks he can stand there and literally lie to American voters about how he's funded and who he has ties to, he's sadly mistaken. People are gonna find out. And look, this is a little outside of, this particular topic, but he really looks like he's struggling, and his health he doesn't seem well. His eyes were incredibly bloodshot throughout this town hall. It looks like he's stressed out. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, look, I'm not worried about his eyes. I have no idea why. He said maybe he had a little too much to smoke last night. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's not what happens to your.
I'm kidding. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not worried about his eye. I am worried that he keeps making not just the standard Biden gaffes, but weird, inexplicable statements. So that I'm slightly concerned about.
Yeah.
But I'm much more concerned about the corruption. So I want to go back to something Elizabeth Warren said that we talked about earlier in the show. She said the first thing we've got to do is we've got to attack this corruption. So she keeps naming it. And before, nobody used the word corruption. We've got to talk about this corruption head on in Washington and say enough of having the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry write all of our laws in this area. No more, no more. Whereas Biden goes, well, technically he's not an executive now, but he has all this money that he wants to give me and all his buddies want to give me because he founded a fossil fuel company. No, Joe, that counts, and that's the whole point. And Biden, in one of those moments, Biden-esque moments, admitted, look, if you give me $250,000 after the campaign, if I'm president, I'm going to take your call and I'm going to listen to what you have to say. And that's the corruption that we're sick of. It doesn't mean you're personally corrupt like Donald Trump, but it is systemic corruption, and it is what is ruining our country.
I want to end on one final tweet in regard to this story, and it's what Simone Sanders had to say about the interaction between Biden and Anderson Cooper. So she tweeted, what Anderson Cooper just said about Vice President Biden's fundraiser is factually incorrect. Andrew Goldman isn't a fossil fuel executive. He's not involved in the day-to-day operation. He's not on the board of the company, nor the board of the portfolio company. She didn't provide any evidence for that claim, but for anyone who wants to figure out what the truth is, all you have to do is look up the bio for Andrew Goldman. And if you go to the next graphic, that's what the bio looks like. And I'm gonna read you just a short portion of it where it talks about his day-to-day investing activities. It says he was a founding partner in De Cordova Goldman Holdings, an opportunistic investor with investments in natural resources and energy, media, and telecommunications and financial services.
So that's a different company that he founded, and that is also investing into fossil fuel companies. So he's got a fossil fuel company he started and one that he uses to fund the other ones. So look, the bottom line is Biden got caught, the internet catches you, and look, you guys are a part of that. So how did that question would have never been aired, and we never would have talked about corruption if it wasn't for the fact that an audience member that read an Intercept article that was sent to them by Sunrise got that question on national television. And because for older voters, if you're younger and you grew up on the internet, you can search all these things and you see the Intercept article, you see the Young Turks, etc. right? But if you're an older voter, they don't know. Like, don't get mad at them. They literally have no idea. That's the first time they're like, oh, really? Biden's going to a fundraiser from the fossil fuel industry, the guy who founded the company? Well, that sounds really bad. Yeah, it is really bad.
Yeah.
Just TV kept it as a state secret before this.
Yeah. And look, I lied. There is one other point that I want to make because it's important. Look, Biden, you can already see the influence in what he is offering / isn't offering in combating climate change. I mean, he's gone to fundraisers and told these corporate CEOs, don't worry, nothing's gonna change under my watch. And we've reported on that. But I also wanna give you this piece of information. This is graphic 8. Biden's climate policy advisor, her name is Heather Zeichel, made more than $1 million from a natural gas firm after leaving the Obama administration.
No, but that doesn't influence her at all. No, all of these people that are around Biden and all the other corporate Democrats, the millions of dollars that they have made and millions of dollars they've gotten in campaign contributions and independent expenditures, they're superhuman. So they're not at all affected by it. See, no one actually believes that. And if you wonder, well, then why does Biden have a lead? Why does anybody even think about voting for Biden? Why don't they just vote for a non-corrupted candidate? Because they don't know, because TV never tells them. So go spread videos like this, go spread Intercept articles so that your parents, grandparents, and your neighbors, family can all find out the reality. These corporate Democrats take money from these corporations and do their bidding. If Joe Biden wins, ain't nothing gonna change.
We're gonna take a short break. When we come back, this is my favorite story of the day. Donald Trump, Mike Pence, frenemies of the year.
Oh, this is an amazing story. You're gonna love this.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited? Wow. Some of the best writers in the country are right here on this panel, with the obvious exception of John Irola.
Let's not so quickly discount Harry Potter fan fiction.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
You know, I can't get over the fact that Donald Trump already has lower numbers than George Bush did after Katrina.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Their legislation is always accompanied by some kind of moral judgment, right? This idea that poverty is a choice.
What ran me away from Christianity was judgment and condemnation.
Assaulting peaceful protesters in North Dakota, crazier than bombing Yemen, crazier than bombing Syria so much they ran out of bombs. You mean crazier than funding ISIS and trying to knock off Assad at the same time?
Amazing footage came out today of a 5-year-old child being miraculously pulled from rubble in Aleppo. A miracle and a reminder of the horror of that conflict is still present every single day.
Yeah.
This is what democracy looks like.
When I think back to the debates in 2016, this was a very different party that was debating.
First time in my lifetime that I've actually had progressives represent us.
Bernie Sanders has changed the arithmetic.
This whole debate tonight was shaped by progressives.
She came with receipts. That was her strongest moment by far.
This is going to be one of the best primaries we've ever seen.
This is what we've been saying would happen, and now it's playing out on the debate stage.
A real exchange of ideas. It's going to be a doozy.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Tommy Too Strong writes in, what's telling us that even if we believe that Biden folks didn't know about the fossil fuel connection, the fact is that they didn't even think to check out the guy hosting his own fundraiser. Fish don't realize they're swimming in water either. Now, look, his advisors know that the guy founded a natural gas company. They know, right? Yeah, but we need the money, Lebowski. They don't have any small dollar donations. All they have is giant checks, right? So that's why they did. Look, they didn't go to a black church event in South Carolina where you really need those voters, right? Even if you didn't care about the black community, you need it for politics. But both Biden and Kamala Harris didn't go because they had fundraisers. We told you about this yesterday in Rehoboth Beach and Martha's Vineyard, okay? Only Sanders and Warren showed up. Speaking of which, Cognasco this points out, Sanders called for a complete ban on fracking on Wednesday afternoon, imploring all other candidates to join him in the proposal he outlined earlier as part of his version of a Green New Deal, which builds on the resolution introduced by Markey and AOC. And then finally, this one's fun. Meg says, I love any time Mike Pence is made uncomfortable. So,
you're about to see it.
Yeah, Meg,
so good.
Your wish is our command.
Yes, but before we get to that, I just want to tell our members, tell everyone that today we're going to be doing a post-game super chat, meaning we will be taking questions from anyone who participates in the super chat. So Cenk unfortunately had a last-minute conflict and will not be joining us, but it'll be me and John. We'll be answering your super chat questions for the post-game. It'll be open to everyone, but we will answer questions specifically from those participating in super chat.
I got to go to a parent-teacher conference, find out what's on tap for first grade this year.
Now I look like a bad guy because I referred to it as a conflict.
No, it is a conflict.
Like
I'm the bad guy for finding out about it yesterday. Okay, anyway, all right, let's go forward.
All right, my favorite story of the day, let's do it. Looks like there's more chaos and conflict within the Trump administration. This time it's between Donald Trump and Mike Pence. And the rumors about this actually started a few weeks ago with a Nikki Haley tweet that came out of nowhere. So Nikki Haley's tweet said, quote, "Enough of the false rumors. Vice President Pence has been a dear friend of mine for years. He has been a loyal and trustworthy VP to the president. He has my complete support." So look, allegedly there were rumors that Trump wants to push Pence out for his 2020 re-election campaign and bring Nikki Haley in, who was the former US ambassador to the UN. Yeah. Now she has stepped down from that position, but I kind of ignored this story. I'm like, this is out of nowhere, this is weird. But I think that there's a connection here because now there seems to be a little bit of a conflict between Mike Pence and Donald Trump, partly because Donald Trump has a massive ego and he's concerned that Mike Pence is too ambitious. Now first, Donald Trump says this in regard to Nikki Haley. "I love Nikki. She endorsed me. She's my friend. She's part of my campaign. But Mike has been a great vice president. Love Nikki, and there are places for Nikki, and Nikki's future is great." He's very eloquent. But Mike Pence is the person 100%. We won together. We have tremendous evangelical support. You can't break up a team like that. Now, what he mentioned about evangelical support is key. He knows that he needs the evangelical vote, and evangelicals love Mike Pence because he actually does believe in the socially conservative nonsense that evangelicals have been pushing for.
Okay, I gotta step in there. So this is classic Trump. And then you're gonna see there's a nail in Pence's coffin coming up in a second. But you're not supposed to say the quiet parts out loud. You're supposed to say, "Oh, Mike Pence is an incredible partner of mine in policy, and he helps me run this great economy, and we're doing wonderful, etc." No, he just brazenly says, "He helps me get votes with evangelicals." Okay, he said it twice. Another time he said, "I think that he's been incredible in terms of the love that a lot of people, especially if you look at the evangelicals and so many others, they really have a great respect for the vice president, and so do I think most people." So in other words, twice he's like, I don't know, the evangelicals like him, he ain't doing nothing, but and I won't let him do anything, but the evangelicals like him, so I guess he's gotta be on the ticket. But hold.
Oh, this is where it's gonna get so good.
Okay.
All right.
So we got more.
Yeah.
But when they asked him about how Pence might be removed from the ticket, he said, "That's fake news."
Of course he said that.
If I was Mike Pence, I'm like, "Oh, Wheezy, oh no, take me now." Okay, that means you're toast, brother. Is there anything that Trump has called fake news that wasn't 100% correct?
I don't think so. I don't think so. So this is where things start to get good. Several White House insiders, advisors, went and spoke to a reporter over at Yahoo News, Tom LeBlanco. Please check out his piece, it's really good. And here's portions of it that I think are relevant to this story. Tensions have been mounting among Trump, Pence, and their top advisors ever since the GOP's resounding losses in the 2018 midterms. In the weeks afterward, Trump asked aides about replacing Pence on the ticket, and he asked again for their thoughts on Pence during his August vacation at his golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey, according to Trump advisors who spoke on condition of anonymity.
And they're definitely having these conversations 1,000,000%. Wait till you find out why. We're getting to that in a second. But back to Nikki Haley's tweet for just one quick second. Imagine if I put out a tweet, "These outrageous false rumors of Anna being fired are ridiculous. And she is not going to be replaced by S.E. Cupp."
You can't break up a team like me and Anna because Anna's the one who brings in the viewers.
Okay, well that part might
I'm
be a
just
little
kidding.
true,
I'm just kidding.
but if I put that tweet out of nowhere, you'd be like, "Wait, are they firing Anna?"
Right, totally. Right. Yeah. So let me give you more, because it appears that Donald Trump's family members are very much involved in this rift. Rumors that Kushner and Ivanka Trump wanted to. Kushner and Ivanka, let's stay there. Rumors that Kushner and Ivanka Trump wanted to consider replacements for Pence, specifically trying to find a woman running mate to help win back the suburbs in 2020, have worried the vice president's camp. Kushner and Ivanka Trump have sidelined Pence's top political aides on the re-election. Longtime fundraiser Marty Obst and former spokesman Mark Lauder, according to Trump campaign advisors. A Pence advisor noted that they have had some trouble working with Trump's campaign during the past year.
It's always Ivanka and Kushner. Every time, every one of these stories, Steve Bannon, so I'm glad he's gone, but yes, Reince Priebus, John Kelly, you name it. It's every story is like, but Ivanka and Jared were whispering in the hallways and they said they don't like him because the only person they want daddy to listen to is them. And then we'll show you stories about Jared Kushner gets another giant tax cut deal, real estate deal, property deal, etc. Oh, daddy, oh my God. Mike Pence is so bad, you gotta win back the suburbs. Plus, give us another real estate tax break.
Oh, it gets better. This is just the beginning, little tippy tip of the iceberg. An anonymous Trump advisor told the reporter that the perception is that Pence's team is difficult to work with.
Look, I don't know about Pence's team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were difficult to work with, but difficult to work with, Donald Trump defines it. He's unbearable to work with. I agree with Pence's strategy, by the way. Pence's strategy overall is stay away from Trump.
That's exactly right, yeah. He's been pretty quiet, and he doesn't really seem to, conflict with anything Trump says. He's
got the Kandahar strategy. Go hide in a cave in Kandahar and hope that Trump doesn't notice you. Because there's no winning with Trump. You have to go kiss his ass 24 hours a day. And if you accidentally kiss it 23 hours a day, or you overdo it, it's, oh, you're doing too much. Oh, you don't look right. Oh, you say it more. Say how great I am. You gotta stay away from him as much as possible because he's gonna go nuclear on you no matter what you do. He's a moron.
Yeah,
he's an egomaniac. Wait till you see why he's actually upset at Pence.
Exactly. A donkey likes to have his fur stroked in the direction in which the hair grows, right? Or else he'll kick you. That's a quote from American Factory, a great documentary you guys should check out on Netflix. Anyway, so let's get to the heart of this story, why Trump is so worried about Pence. Trump is worried that Pence has ambitions to run in 2024. In fact, he was asked about it during a Fox and Friends segment. Pay close attention to how Trump responds.
Mr. President, Barack Obama has said he's not going to endorse Joe Biden at this point. If Mike Pence runs for president in 2024, does he have your automatic endorsement?
Well, it's far too. Look, I love Mike. We're running again, but you're talking about a long time, so you can't put me in that position. But I certainly would give it very strong consideration. He's a very, very outstanding person.
Wow.
That was amazing.
No, but it's worse than that. It turns out.
Don't go into the poll because I have it.
No, poll we're gonna get to in a second. A former advisor to the president said all this would go away if Pence announced he wasn't running for president in 2020.
Yeah.
Now, guys, think about that. Trump, he's not talking about 2020. He's not talking about re-election. He's not worried that Pence is gonna run against him. No, he just says, how dare you ever want to be president? So if the president has 2 terms, it's very normal for the vice president to run after that. And Trump is mad at Pence for considering running after him. Why? Because the ego cannot be contained. No, I am the only one who could ever be president. Oh my God, I just figured out live on air. This clown is thinking of staying in office after 2024.
Either that or he's thinking of getting Ivanka to run.
Oh, totally. Oh my God, what a buffoon, what a monster. Jesus Christ, man. And all of you that are close to Donald Trump, whether it's Mike Pence or people in his cabinet, have you not seen him politically assassinate everyone around him? He's poison.
It's so good.
So and they're still like, no. I'm the one guy he's not gonna turn on. No, he's gonna turn on you. He turns on everybody. So Pence is sitting around in a cave in Kandahar like, when's he gonna turn? When's he gonna turn? All right, I'll go to your properties. I promise I'll go to your properties. Now finally the poll. The poll is amazing.
Yes, so let's talk about the poll. All right, so in the spring, Pence's advisors went to Pascal, who is part of Donald Trump's campaign, right? And they wanted to ask if he could include a question testing Pence's favorability on a poll he was doing of battleground states. This is where it gets good, guys. Pascal said it was too late to add the question to the poll, but what he didn't tell Pence's aides is that the question was already on the poll, done in 14 states. When the results came back, Pence's favorability was higher than Trump's, something Pascal and the campaign's pollsters withheld from Trump and Pence. Drams. Okay, this is soap opera stuff, but it gets even more dramsy. This is so many twists. It's amazing.
Amazing.
But Pence's chief political aide, who also works as a senior advisor on the Trump campaign, used a mole inside the president's campaign to get a copy of one of the polls.
Which he shouldn't have done. And I'll tell you why, not because of the drama. Look, the Machiavellian, oh, it's not in the poll, it is in the poll. That happens in a lot of campaigns. That's not just Trump, okay? But the reason that they didn't share it with, Pascal works for Trump. He's his campaign manager. I get not sharing it with Pence, but he didn't share it with Trump, because if he shared it with Trump, Pence is a goner.
Yes.
Fired within
seconds.
Max 2 weeks, but it might be 2 seconds.
I mean, yes, if Trump is that salty about Pence possibly running in 2024, can you imagine him seeing a poll where Pence is revealed to be more popular than Trump is, which by the way, sad state of affairs in America. Like they're both terrible.
Yeah.
But
no, he can't abide by it. He can't abide by anyone in the Republican Party being more popular than him. Oh, I hope he sees this video. Send this video to the White House. Pence, nah. But look, seriously, with Trump, there's no winning. If he was less popular than Trump, he'd be like, this guy's a loser. He's weighing me down. I need to win the suburbs. I got to get Nikki Haley in here, right? If he's higher than him, how dare he? Who does he think he is? We got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
Bring Nikki Haley in here. And what would he do with Nikki Haley? And then he'd get jealous about her.
Exactly. So if Nikki Haley, to use one of your quotes, had 2 brain cells to rub together, this is a cautionary tale for her. This is a cautionary tale for anyone who's drunk on the notion of power, right? Of obtaining power. You should be aware that there is no winning. Eventually, there will come a day where you can't do anything right to please this, authoritarian monster.
Yeah, he's Joffrey Baratheon, man. It's so, he's in every way, he's Joffrey, right? There's no winning. So Pence, good luck to you, brother. I mean, you're despicable. So I love that you're in this predicament. But all of you around Donald Trump, the main lesson to learn is, one day you're gonna find yourself on the underside of a bus. And so you keep defending him now for what? For temporary power? You're gonna lose that power, you're gonna lose everything when he betrays you, as he does everyone, including his own vice president.
These are the days of our lives.
And by the way, so super last thing, speaking of the evangelicals.
That was a great out, Jane.
I know, okay, forget it, let's go. She's right.
I am right. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. But when we come back, I'm gonna talk about how Trump and Pence are just severely wasting your tax dollars.
Now baby, move that fat, baby, move that fat. We thugged out.
What's J&A?
Ja'Cory and Arthur.
You guys share a mug?
Yeah, you both take our hot cocoa black.
That doesn't make any sense.
Plus, I'm right-handed and Arthur's left-handed, so our lips wouldn't even touch the same area. It's perfect.
No, I'm not left-handed.
What do you mean? I've seen you type with your left hand.
Yeah, and also with my right hand. That's how typing works.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Pop Trigger, Nerd Alert, Post Game, also for What the Flick. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell a herbicide called Roundup, but you should know that that herbicide is a potential killer. Recent studies have linked Roundup to significant increases in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's a cancer that can be devastating to you and the people you love. While Roundup continues to cause cancer, Monsanto continues to make huge profits from the sale of Roundup. They will not take it off the market. If you or a loved one are exposed to Roundup at work or home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to financial compensation, and it's important for you to take action now and hold Monsanto accountable.
We are onto something that is going to be amazing, but what we need is your help.
The number one problem is there's too much power in too few hands.
Every single problem that we have can be traced back to dark money.
They take large donors, they serve large donors.
So these handful of gatekeepers try to dictate everything.
Like all of you already know, they don't work for you, they work for their donors. So fire them and hire people who will only work for you that say no corporate PAC money.
We are going to change the way we elect candidates in this country.
Uncorrupted Democrats. We're gonna fight for the issues and win on policy.
This is incredibly personal. We need free health care for everyone.
We're fighting for $15 minimum wage, single payer health care, debt-free college, and we are gonna get money out of politics once and for all.
I've taken a public pledge not to accept any corporate money.
Because the last thing we're gonna do is go into another presidential election and run a corporatist against a populist candidate.
At some point, the buck needs to stop, and it's gonna stop with us. It's gonna stop with Justice Democrats.
So who are we?
People who do not take corporate PAC money.
We're relying on small donors.
99.9% of our contributions came from people.
You're a Just Democrat, so you don't take any corporate PAC money.
I'm not influenced by money.
As a Justice Democrat, I made that pledge.
Not a betting. Absolutely no.
I will go to Congress unbossed and unbought.
We try to create a government which works for all of us.
That is what America's about, and that's what a representative democracy should be about.
We are just getting warmed up here. Vote for uncorrupted Democrats. The fight starts now, it starts today, and it starts with you.
And someone sent me a message on Snapchat, but now I can't find it. What do I do? Go. All right, back on the Young Turks. Let's go to you guys. We do the show together. Members, comments first. By the way, tyt.com/join to become a member. Renee says, since Trump is the self-declared king of Israel, he doesn't need Pence anymore for the evangelical votes. So that's one theory, right? Dell says, did Jake just make a Jefferson's reference? This is an awesome show. Actually, what I do is a combination of Sanford and Son and Jefferson's, because Wheezy's from the Jeffersons. And it's Fred Sanford who goes, oh, take me now, right? Except he doesn't. I just looked it up. And I'm like, what? I know it's not Wheezy. Turns out it's Elizabeth, I'm coming. Because his wife, Elizabeth, I'm coming. I'm coming home to you. But Wheezy sounds better from the Jeffersons. Anyway, on Twitter, RL Hines says, my favorite part of the TYT today was Turkish proverbs that Anna Kasparian made up.
Like what?
No, it's not a Turkish proverb. It's what I say.
Yeah,
it's what Jake says. Two brain cells to rub together. KT Nicole 87 says the White House is literally high school. And Nicholas Ward says if Obama tweeted Biden is great, he brings in rich white donors. Imagine that would be the equivalent. And then finally, Viscous Cree with a different prediction about why Trump doesn't want Pence to run in 2024. It's a pretty good one. Calling it now. Trump is mad about Pence in 2024 because he's planning on running again when he loses in 2020. Oh. Pretty good, Viscous. Pretty good. Okay, so that's another possibility.
Yeah.
All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. Senate Democrats are looking into Mike Pence's stay in a part of Ireland that was very far away from where he was supposed to be for the anniversary commemorating World War II. Now, both he and Trump traveled to Ireland, but Pence stayed in a different place, okay? He stayed over 100 miles away from Dublin, which is where the event was taking place. So Senator Gary Peters, the ranking member of the Senate's Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, sent a letter to the Vice President asking for specific information about why this happened. Like, why did you stay there? Were you unable to find accommodations closer to Dublin? And you had your wife, your sister, and your mother with you. Did you happen to pay for them out of pocket, or did the US taxpayers pay for that? Now, here's another important part of the story. The property he stayed at was a Trump property.
Of course.
Yeah, in Doonbeg, Ireland. So there is, of course, worry that Donald Trump is finding ways to enrich himself, which he has been doing since the very beginning of his presidency. There's no question about it. So this story broke earlier in the week, but I think that now, given the fact that Donald Trump and Mike Pence have some drama going on, they have some conflict within the White House, it makes the story a little more juicy. So Peters told Pence in a letter, and this is graphic EB2, Peters told Pence in a letter that he was troubled by the apparent conflict of interest in your decision to stay at a property owned by President Trump, which creates the risk that taxpayer funds are being used to directly profit the president. Asked on Tuesday if the president asked Pence to stay at his property, the vice president's chief of staff, Mark Short, told reporters he did not think it was a request like a command, but rather a suggestion. Mark Short also said, it's like when we went through the trip, it's like, well, he's going to Doonbeg because that's where the Pence family is from. It's like, well, you should stay at my place. Now, Trump, of course, as always, is denying everything.
Of course.
And I wanna go to that video, let's take a look.
Your involvement in the vice president's plans to stay at a Trump property in Ireland?
Well, I had no involvement other than it's a great place. It's Doonbeg, I own it. It's in Ireland. It's beautiful, it's wonderful. And he had his family lives there, which is really amazing. Mike, his family has lived there for many decades. In fact, one of the first things he said to me is that he knew I had this terrific place in Doonbeg in Ireland. And he said to me, you know, my family lives in Doonbeg, meaning in that area, that certain area of, it's a beautiful area in Ireland. But from what I understood, he was going there. Then I heard he was going there, but I didn't, it wasn't my idea for Mike to go there. Mike went there because his family's there. That's my understanding of it.
You didn't suggest that he...
No, I don't suggest anything.
So,
poor guy doesn't suggest anything.
So Trump claims he didn't suggest anything. Then you have Pence's chief of staff, Mark Short, saying Trump suggested it, which Trump is not too happy about, and we'll get into that in just a second. And then immediately after, Pence releases a statement.
Can I guess? Groveling, of course the president is correct. It's all my fault, I'm so sorry, when do I get spanked?
He said, at no time did the president direct anyone to stay at the property.
Notice he used the word direct.
Yes.
He did not direct them. But like a mob boss, when he suggests that you stay at his property, probably wise to take him up on that suggestion.
Now I direct you to a Pence video and just pay close attention to how awkward it is and how uncomfortable Pence is when a reporter asks him about his stay. Take a look.
If you think about the bonds that exist between the Irish people and the American people, they have much to do with shared heritage, they have much to do with family. And that's why it was important for me, before our original trip plan, to at least spend one night in Doonbeg. And I understand political attacks by Democrats, but if you have a chance to get to Doonbeg, you'll find it's a fairly small place. And the opportunity to stay at Trump National in Doonbeg to accommodate the unique footprint that comes with our security detail and other personnel made it logical.
They say you're enriching the president. What's your response to that criticism?
It's wonderful to be back in Ireland. For many reasons, Ireland is so important to the United States of America as a trading partner.
Wow.
If you notice, even in the first part of the answer, he said, in our original plans. Oh, so you had original plans in terms of where you were staying in Ireland, and you changed the plans to make sure you stayed at the Trump resort.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Of course. Look, the one part that is true, which is rare for Trump to say anything that has any truth in it, is that yes, Pence's great-grandmother is in Doonbeg, and his cousin runs a bar there, which sounds fun, okay? So I don't begrudge him going to Doonbeg, but he obviously changed his plans and made sure to stay at the Trump resort. And by the way, the money sent to the Trump resort is a problem. The bigger problem in terms of the amount of money spent by taxpayers is Air Force 2 flying back and forth across Ireland for no reason at all.
Exactly, yeah, so that's a huge problem. Now I wanna get back to Mark Short, because this is the juicy part of the story, and this is the kind of stuff I live for. So Mark Short actually used to work for Trump, but stepped down. So there's some dramas between Trump and Mark Short. Remember, Mark Short is Pence's chief of staff.
Yeah, I'm
so
shocked
good.
he still exists.
No, I gotta give you. I want to give you the timeline. It's important. So Trump actually named Short the director of legislative affairs on January 4th, 2017. Short announced that he would leave the White House post in the summer of 2018 because of diminishing returns of pushing President Donald Trump's agenda. That is what he said publicly, okay? Ooh. On February 19th, 2019, Vice President Mike Pence then announced Short would be his next chief of staff.
Man, Pence playing with fire there. No wonder he had to go to Doonbeg to put it out.
Now remember, Mark Short is the one who spoke to the press and said that Donald Trump is the one who suggested that Pence stay at the Doonbeg property.
Oh my God, is Mike Pence the guy who wrote the New York Times editorial?
Maybe, I don't know, hold on, we'll get to that in just a second. And when Mark Short made that statement to the press, of course, Trump wasn't happy about it. In fact, Caitlin Collins reported on this, and I wanna show you what she had to say.
I'm told that the president was furious after he learned that Mark Short said that he had suggested it, essentially putting the credit for the president on why they picked that location to stay in this tiny town that we should know is less than 1,000 people. The president was so furious about it that third statement that Pam was talking about there came out about 3:30 in the morning in Ireland. Of course, not typically when most people are awake issuing statements on someone's behalf after Short has already spoken and the vice president has already appeared on camera over it.
That's some serious panic there. Okay, I love the drama, I do. So you know that Pence has conversations with Mark Short every day, like, is 25th Amendment yet? 25th Amendment yet? And like when they had the Sharpie incident, he's like, come on, Mark, we gotta go, right? Can I convene the cabinet? We all hate him, right? And we all know he's mental. And of course, if they did do the 25th Amendment and declare him mentally incompetent, which would be awesome and completely correct, then of course Pence would be president. So, oh my God, the betrayal would be so wonderful and delicious.
It would. Yeah, so look, it could be Mike Pence, the individual who wrote that cowardly anonymous New York Times column. It was cowardly, let's keep it real. It could have been Mark Short.
Yeah. There's no question that Mark Short is not happy with Donald Trump, but that speaks of almost every Republican in Washington. They all know, they all can't stand him. They all know he's an idiot. They know he has mental deficiencies, but they're so afraid of the Mad King, right?
Yep.
And so, but at least you got to give Mark Short a tiny bit of credit because every once in a while he just dings him a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
He just slices him a little bit and goes, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
Look, I will confidently say I disagree with Mark Short on pretty much everything. But I mean, it does take at least a tiny bit of courage to step down from Trump's team and then literally get hired as the chief of staff for Mike Pence, knowing what kind of person Donald Trump is.
Yeah, I know, but it also takes a little bit of courage from Pence. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like, help me out here, figure out how to. I mean, you're not hiring Mark Short after he disses Trump and leaves him, unless you're making designs, unless you're making plans and rereading the 25th Amendment with your morning coffee every single day. By the way, Stephanie Ruhle had a good comment about this. She said, look, on the trip, he was there with his wife and his mother. So when they're in the room together, which one does he call mother?
I didn't like that, to be honest. Like, what? I don't know.
Okay, yeah, we'd probably pick on Pence too much for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like big on family and stuff. Like I just don't like those personal digs.
Yeah, but come on, he calls his wife mother and won't go to dinner with any other woman or won't be in a room with any other woman without mother present.
Sounds like a win for Pence's wife. You know what? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'll kill you, Christian. No, I'm just kidding. I really am kidding. We're gonna take a break though, and then we're gonna talk about Hurricane Dorian. Trump just will not drop it. He's doubling down again on his Alabama comments. Come right back.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
We get animated about the news. Yes, we're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care.
Senator Sanders, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to ask you a policy question.
How dare you? That's the problem, you're the problem. Don't ever attack the Republicans. Where the is the liberal media? No, these are all establishment guys. They love the system as it is. They're all enormously rich off the system that exists.
For us, this system isn't working.
So what this campaign is about is trying to create an economy that works not only for the people on top, but works for all Americans.
So what's happening in the Democratic Party is what used to happen in the general election. We would have a person who represented workers and the people and the voters, and then the Republicans would represent business and corporations and Wall Street. That's happening all inside the Democratic Party this time.
We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities, and we're gonna keep it real with them.
He's so progressive, he recycles his thoughts. His car cleans the air. He prosecuted a bank executive and won. His idea of Social Security is old people being able to survive. When he builds a bridge, it bridges the income inequality gap. The only campaign contribution he'll accept is your vote. He's the most progressive man in the world.
Not all Democrats are created equal. Support bold progressives, my friends.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm the Derpy Dragon writes in, if it's a Trump property, I hope Pence got bed bugs. That's funny. Guillotining progressive. What does that sound like? Okay, cool it with that. The guillotining stuff. But anyway, says a segment where Anna and Cenk dunk on Trump and Pence, gold. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I want to let you guys know, like I told you before, I'm going to be in New York on Monday. So at 5:30, we're meeting in Bryant Park. We're doing a meetup, and Jamal Bowman, the congressional candidate for Just Democrats in New York, is also going to be there with me. So make sure you check that out. If you want to see a video about Jamal's race, it's amazing. Go check it out at tyt.com/R2R, as in the number 2, R2R. And I, of course, want to see you guys in Houston as well. We're doing a meetup there on the day of the debates on September 12th. For that, sign up at tyt.com/rally. And I got one last tweet or comment for you guys from the member section. Yavi Marita says, remember that Michael Cohen testified under oath that Trump doesn't ever directly order people to do things. He speaks in a code, suggesting people do things he really wants them to do, like lie on his behalf or give him money. So when he says, maybe you should stay at my property, right? That means stay at my goddamn property, because even if people talk about it, at least I could say, oh, it's beautiful, and they all show pictures of it, et cetera, and it becomes a giant brochure for his properties.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.
It's a good point. All right, let's get to the rest of the news. Donald Trump continues to double down on the notion that the path of Hurricane Dorian was initially going to impact the state of Alabama. Now, he has been fact-checked over and over again. The National Weather Service fact-checked him and said, no, this is not true. Journalists fact-checked him, which led to Trump lashing out at them. And then later, he showed a National Weather Service map that had a Sharpie mark on it that made it appear as though the path of the storm was going to impact Alabama. The original map did not have that mark on it. So he was using that prop as a way to bolster his nonsense claims. Now he's doubling down again via Twitter, writing, quote, in the early days of the hurricane, when it was predicted that Dorian would go through Miami or West Palm Beach, even before it reached the Bahamas, certain models strongly suggested that Alabama and Georgia would be hit as it made its way through Florida to the Gulf. All right. So again, he just refuses to admit that he was wrong, which is crazy to me. But look, Cenk, you're right. Trump has already launched Trump TV. In fact, they recently did a weather report. So why don't we go to the Trump Weather channel and see what they have to say about this story.
This is Brett Ehrlich reporting live on Hurricane Dorian as the storm bears down here in Mobile, Alabama. And as you can see, the weather is actually pretty nice. We need to fix this shot. We need to make it seem like there's more of a hurricane. Okay, actually, let's go to some video of a hurricane. Oh God, that's what a hurricane would look like if one was here. And that's scary, isn't it? And actually, if you listen really close, you can hear the wind. You hear that? It's the wind of a hurricane. If one was here, which it is, I don't even know how to lie anymore. One sec. All over the place, see? Real natural debris. And I'm not even sure how the people here in Mobile will cope with the cleanup afterwards. So we're just really waiting with, you gotta get out of the shot. You gotta get out of the shot with bated breath to see what will happen. And ow, okay, all right, okay. That's not, back to you guys, back to you in the studio. All right. Mr. President, I can't fake rain. What do you mean use a Sharpie? As you can see, the rain is coming down in buckets. The rain's coming down all over the place, and there is no quarter. There is no quarter, no place to hide in this destruction that's befalling the Gulf Coast. Dorian, the president's right. Dorian is a nightmare, an utter nightmare. I quit. I just quit.
I'm telling you, Trump TV is not going to be that far off.
I believe it.
Because he doesn't know how to run anything. So you think he's gonna have production quality? You think they're gonna?
Rabies.
That's right. Remember when they tried Trump TV during the campaign?
Yes.
They were preparing it, and it was two schmucks sitting in the middle of the campaign, and people would accidentally say things that were related to the campaign in the background, and people would hear it and know their strategy. And there was just one guy yelling, "So rabies!" Okay.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Okay, so one more thing about the real news, which is also fake news by Trump. So when he's asked to double down, nobody asked him actually. He decided that he was going to double down and triple down on that it was going to hit Alabama. He's like, this is a quote from Trump. They actually gave that a 95% chance probability.
No, they didn't.
That it would hit Alabama. So the reporter's like, okay, yeah, great. Show us anywhere where it says 95, 90, 75, 55%, anywhere. No, it is. It's 95% chance. Where do you get that number? All right. Well, hey, look at this. Look at what I found. He's just.
I don't even really understand like what the point of his lies are, right? Like I know he's insecure, he can't ever admit he's wrong. But why did he start off by claiming that Alabama would be impacted, right? So look, it's Alabama. A lot of them support Trump and they trust him and they believe everything he says. Imagine the panic that people must have felt when they saw his statements and actually, and by the way, after this whole debacle, if you're in Alabama and you've been a Trump supporter throughout this whole process, even through the whole Roy Moore thing, how do you still support him? He lied to you.
Oh, they don't care at all. Look, it could be sunny in Alabama, and they'll go hide in their bunker. They'll be like, Trump said it's gonna, tornadoes coming. I mean, a hurricane's coming. I mean, an earthquake's coming any second now. If there's a 95% chance, dude, look up. It's totally sunny. It's fine, right? No, they'll believe Trump over their lying eyes. So, and why did he say Alabama? Because he's like, God damn it, another hurricane might hit Puerto Rico. He said that a couple of weeks ago. He's like, when is it ever gonna end? When he said about the hurricane potentially hitting Puerto Rico. But about Alabama, he's like, oh, the good folks in Alabama. The good folks in Alabama have to worry about this hurricane, but don't worry, I'm here to protect you. That's him appealing to his base.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And you can even juxtapose, I mean, he doesn't, even though they're Americans, he doesn't consider Puerto Ricans Americans. But even if you want to juxtapose the way he treats people in mainland USA, right? What is the word, contiguous? The contiguous states, whatever.
The continental United States.
The continental United States. So think about how he responds to a natural disaster in California versus Florida or Texas, right? I mean, we had those wildfires and his response was, you aren't raking enough leaves in the forest and that's why you have the fires in California.
There's so many insane things he says we can't keep up. I mean, we've already forgotten that his original idea was to nuke the hurricane.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, for Republicans, whether they're in the cabinet and can use the 25th Amendment or Democrats and Republicans together in Congress doing impeachment, what will it take for you to take legal action against a person who's clearly mentally unbalanced? If he, instead of drawing it in a Sharpie, if he'd drawn the fake hurricane map in crayon, would that have done it? And my guess is no. No, Nancy Pelosi would have been like, well, okay, he drew it in crayon. He's obviously lost his mind, but we're not gonna do anything.
I think it's super cute that you think like the writing utensil he utilizes is gonna change anyone's mind. Like it doesn't matter that he used a Sharpie or if he would use a crayon. It wouldn't matter if he used like a fuchsia colored crayon. It doesn't matter.
Is there anything
no one holds him accountable ever. Which shows you that, look, what I've learned through this entire process, and I think we all knew it, but this is really something that we've been confronted with in the Trump administration. Democracy is fragile, it's so fragile. And if you don't have the right people protecting it, it will fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, even Judge Napolitano, again from Fox News, wrote an editorial today saying, what do you mean take money from the Defense Department and use it for building the wall? He's like, that's not how our Constitution works, just like we told you on yesterday's show. And he's basically saying, isn't anybody gonna do anything? I mean, this is this like ripping the Constitution up And no, Republicans won't do anything, Democrats won't do anything. It is amazing. I mean, it's gotten so bad. I think the most accurate thing that Trump ever said was, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. I think not only would his supporters let him get away with it, I think there's an excellent chance that Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi would let him get away with it.
It might be the only thing he's ever been right about. And he just tweeted this, and it's related to this story and related to the point that I was trying to make about how he only cares about his base and doesn't even care about Americans in other states. He writes, great job by Governor Ron DeSantis, Senator Rick Scott, Senator Marco Rubio, and all of those from Florida that were so brilliantly involved, including FEMA, USCG, law enforcement, and first responders. Thank you all. Again, juxtapose that response to the way he reacted to the wildfires that devastated people in California. Paradise, California, destroyed. And his response to that was, you need to rake the leaves in the forest.
Yeah, so in Puerto Rico, he said, oh, it's the government's fault, they're corrupt. He said they were lazy and not getting prepared, even though it's the federal government's job to go and do that. He called the mayor of San Juan a nasty woman, but everyone he named in that tweet is a Republican. He's like, oh, bravo, Florida Republicans.
Good job, little Marco.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, little Marco, you must be so proud.
Let's move on to the NRA, because there is they're upset, and I like that they're upset. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors has voted unanimously to declare the NRA a terrorist organization. Now, this is a symbolic vote, but the whole point of this is to pressure businesses to no longer do business with the NRA. I want to give you the details on what they're hoping to accomplish. The resolution, which passed unanimously Tuesday night, claims the NRA promotes extremist positions, spreads propaganda to deceive the American public about gun violence, incites gun owners to active violence, and has armed those individuals who would have committed acts of terrorism. It calls for the city and county to take every responsible, or I should say reasonable step to limit San Francisco's financial and contractual relationships with vendors who do business with the NRA. But the resolution does not, for example, carry the law enforcement implications of designation as a foreign terrorist organization. So this is, again, symbolic, but the NRA is upset about it. Now, before I get to the NRA statements, I just want to show you a little piece of evidence that might have persuaded the Board of Supervisors to vote in the way that they did. Take a look.
They use their media to assassinate real news. They use their schools to teach children that their president is another Hitler. They use their movie stars and singers and comedy shows and award shows to repeat their narrative over and over again. And then they use their ex-president to endorse the resistance, all to make them march, make them protest, make them scream racism and sexism and xenophobia and homophobia, to smash windows, burn cars, shut down interstates and airports, bully and terrorize the law-abiding, until the only option left is for the police to do their jobs and stop the madness. And when that happens, they'll use it as an excuse for their outrage. The only way we stop this, the only way we save our country and our freedom, is to fight this violence of lies with the clenched fist of truth.
The clenched fist of ISIS. I mean, NRA, sorry, NRA.
So she showed images, I mean, that's an NRA ad. And I remember when it came out, we talked about it on the show, but she's showing images of people protesting, which is, by the way, protected under our Constitution, right? But that's not part of the Constitution the NRA really cares about. I mean, they'll say the Second Amendment is meant to protect the First, but they don't actually mean it. So anyway, I want to give you the statement from the NRA and then debunk what they're saying, because of course they lie. So NRA spokeswoman Amy Hunter called the resolution a worthless and disgusting soundbite remedy to the violence epidemic gripping our nation.
Because the NRA is so concerned about that violence epidemic. I mean, they're thinking if we could just increase gun sales just a little bit more,
right,
and get that epidemic a little higher, well, then we'll make more money.
She continues to say, this is a reckless assault on a law-abiding organization, its members, and the freedoms they all stand for. Well, let's talk about whether or not the NRA is law-abiding, because I remember earlier this year there was a story that broke about the NRA not following the law. In May, New York financial regulators determined that the NRA was illegally selling insurance policies to gun owners that protected them from court costs after they fired weapons in acts of intentional wrongdoing. Just to give you some more details on this.
What happened to the good guys with the guns? That looks like you're defending the bad guys with the guns who intentionally did wrongdoing with their guns, because what do you care? You just want to make money off of guns. So people die, great, who cares? Let's make more money.
Yeah, which is illegal, so you guys aren't law-abiding. The NRA, this is according to Tim Dickinson from Rolling Stone, the NRA actively marketed Carry Guard, a policy to reimburse members for legal costs incurred after firing a legal gun. The state of New York found that Carry Guard unlawfully provided liability insurance to gun owners for certain acts of intentional wrongdoing. The NRA's insurance partners agreed to stop selling the policies and pay a $7 million fine.
Yeah, would that policy still apply if they shot cops? Because they're saying, hey, I'm gonna defend you even if you do intentional wrongdoing of firing your weapon. So that could certainly be against the cop too. But the NRA is like, oh my God, the liberals are protesting. We have to have our clenched fists against them. It's our only choice. I know, Al Qaeda says the same thing. Anyway, so look, is the NRA an actual domestic terrorist organization? No, okay, so they are not planning acts of terror, they're not carrying them out. Do we have stochastic terrorism in the country, random acts of violence committed that terrorize the country, aided and abetted and encouraged by the right wing, Donald Trump and NRA? Yes. Okay, but nobody's gonna charge them with the crime of terrorism. The crime of domestic terrorism doesn't even exist. So, but the first part of what the San Francisco Board of Supervisors said is absolutely right. Quote, this country is terrorized by gun violence.
Yes.
We all are. We're all worried about our kids. We're worried about the schools, the malls, the Walmarts, the movie theaters. We're all terrorized by this more than anything else in the country.
Excuse me, sorry.
That's okay.
I was trying to hold that. Okay. Yeah, you're right, and I do want to.
You made it.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
I do want to also read one more quote, and this is from a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Her name is Catherine Stefani, and she says, quote, every country on earth has video games, movies, and mental health issues, and yet only the United States has gun violence at elementary schools, at the movies, at Walmart. The difference is guns. No other country has so many assault rifles on their streets. I know that's a point that we've made on this show often, but I think it's important to keep reiterating that, because on one hand you have them claiming, oh, it's a mental health issue, it's a mental health crisis. But then they never do anything about the mental health crisis that they claim is leading to all these mass shootings. They never want to fund it. They just use mental health as the scapegoat to divert the conversation. And at the same time, look, there are mental health issues in all these other countries, but they don't have the same issues that we do.
I want to give you one stat about video games. So no country on earth spends more on video games per capita than Japan, okay? But Japan has very strict gun control. So in America, how many gun deaths are there every year? About 40,000. Now, how many are in Japan? They play more video games. Under 10 per year. 10 versus 40,000. Okay, it's the guns, stupid. Okay, now in the next segment, I got two great guests for you guys. One is a reporter holding Jay-Z accountable for working with the NFL and against Kaepernick in a sense, and holding Dave Chappelle accountable. That should be a really interesting conversation. And also an African-American state senator from North Carolina running for the US Senate. Guess who's against her? It looks like the Democratic Party, because she doesn't have enough money. And YouTube super chat questions in the last half hour of the Young Turks today. So make sure you participate in that as well, live and free to everyone today. All right, we'll see you there.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the president of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
You have that power, so don't let people silence you.
Get out there and take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm gonna vote because I want this country to be different. I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
So get out there, go, do it.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl.
Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL. It's scary. We have to leave our couches.
All right, we got a graphic incoming. Putting up 3, 2, 1. All right, video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm at a Wolfpack gathering.
We're growing. I see faces that I recognize, but I also see a lot of faces that I don't recognize, and that's fantastic.
We are all taking time out of our lives to be here, and that's amazing. That means we truly believe in this. Make no mistake, everyone in this room is a leader in a Wolfpack.
Alaska, West Virginia, Montana, Georgia, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, everyone is here. All these folks paid with their own money and sometimes took vacation days to come here to strategize on how to get our democracy back and get money out of politics.
Or you get more political power just because you have more money. This is why it requires a constitutional amendment.
The process of winning in your state next year doesn't begin when session begins. It begins right now.
To work to a goal, something this big that you're actually making a difference of, there's very few things in the world that really compare to that feeling.
Equal rights to fair representation, rights for human beings, anti-corruption laws, and free and fair elections. That's what we are fighting for.
What were the founding fathers? Revolutionaries. And they built revolution into the document.
So Article 5 is the way we have to go.
This is how you do it.
You're in this as a team, you're in this together. The fight will always continue.
That fight is not between the left and the right. That fight is between basically greed and humanity.
So I'm asking you to put differences aside, whether you're conservative or independent or progressive, to join forces to say no more corruption.
When you get beyond the fear, you take that first step, and you'll change the world.
What I want to leave you with, of course, is hope. And I want to assure you that if we keep fighting together, we're going to win together. We're going to get that convention, we're going to get that amendment, and we're going to get our democracy back. Come join us, wolf-pack.com. All right, back on the Young Turks. Got a couple of great guests for you guys, so let's get started. Joining me now is David Dennis Jr. He's the senior culture editor at News One. David, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. So, David, you write about a variety of issues and read some of your recent articles. The one I want to start with is about Dave Chappelle. Because we were just talking about it on the show in one of our post games or something, and I watched his Sticks and Stones special on Netflix too, and so
I feel as conflicted as you sound a little bit in the article as well, right? Because I love Dave Chappelle and I want to root for him, but I felt it wasn't that funny, right? And I want to get into why. But what's your take on what's happening with Dave Chappelle?
So Dave Chappelle is somebody who is one of the most brilliant comedians that we've ever seen. Has been my favorite comedian for a long time. And one of the things that sort of elevated him to this pop culture phenomenon was that he left the Chappelle Show when it was widely popular in the early 21st century because of the fact that he refuses to sort of listen to audience. He does not do what people tell him to do. And we've seen sort of the inverse of that with this Netflix special, in that he is reactionary. He is making jokes about cancel culture, quote unquote, about the Me Too movement, about the LGBT movement, mostly because he feels as though he's reacting to the audience. The audience is upset with this and he wants to prove to them that he can be funny. And the sad part about it is that those are the jokes that really were the least funny. I mean, we can argue about if you're offended or not. And that's really, for those communities to say, and they, yes, are offended. But also those jokes just really are not funny. I mean, he has these moments where he is really profound and really brilliant when talking about opioid addiction. He's hilarious talking about Jussie Smollett. But when he calls the LGBT community alphabet people, it's just not funny. And then he goes into this Chinese impersonation that is based on these old stereotypes. It's not creative, it is below him. And it's really what makes the special very uneven and ultimately disappointing for a lot of people to watch.
Yeah, but David, I think it's a broader phenomenon than Dave Chappelle, right? Mm-hmm. So like a lot of the right wing doesn't get it. They think, oh, you guys want all the comedians to be politically correct, etc. No, I loved how irreverent and oftentimes offensive Dave Chappelle was on his show on Comedy Central, because it's comedy, we get it, right? And look, a lot of people disagree with me, but I think that why do I keep blanking on his name? The guy who did Office, the British guy. Thank you, Ricky Gervais. Yeah, Ricky Gervais. I saw a special. I thought it was hilarious, even though he said the same kind of offensive things as Dave Chappelle did, but he said it in a funny way. But even he's lost his mind a little bit, and I think it's Twitter that's driving them crazy. And so they keep saying like, hey, don't say those jokes, or those jokes hurt my feelings, and it consumes them. Bill Maher, almost all these comedians are like, how dare you? And they're all collectively yelling at the audience. It's such a weird phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, you think about comedians and the idea is that the audience has thin skin. The audience can't handle the truth. But when the audience tells a comedian, hey, that joke isn't funny, they sort of go into these rants and tantrums, right? About telling us that something is funny. Well, what makes a great comedian is somebody who can read the room, right? If you're in a room and people aren't laughing, you need to adjust your material. That's why you tour your material across the country. The problem is these comedians are refusing to listen to the audience. The audience isn't laughing, then you're not doing a good job. You can't tell an audience that something is funny if they are not laughing. And these comedians seem to be having a difficult time adapting to this climate in which you get real-time feedback, and you get a little bit more feedback and more realistic feedback from a wide array of audience than you're used to getting. The only solution for a comedian is to adjust your material and make people laugh. And if people aren't laughing, then that's really a me problem if you're a comedian.
Yeah, and that's why I thought your piece was so interesting, because that's why, like you pointed out in the article, that's why comedians go and try out their stuff all across the country, because they want to make it better and better and better. That's why it's a craft. That's why it's a profession. And so, and a lot of comics get annoyed if amateurs come in and think, oh, I'll just do it. No, you got to practice, you got to hone it, you got to see how the audience reacts. And if the audience doesn't react well, yelling at them doesn't really help. And I felt like Dave's entire stand up there was explaining why a joke is funny, which is like the least funny thing on the planet, right? So guys, just let it go, move on with your life. Yes, did we hurt your feelings? It's so ironic because they're offended, and hence they're like, oh yeah, how dare you offend me? I'm gonna offend you even more. Okay, well, how about you don't take offense and move on with your life? All right, so that's Dave Chappelle, but I love what you wrote about it because I thought it was really trenchant observation about not being able to read the room. So now let's go to Jay-Z. So you wrote about him as well. So for folks who don't know, give us a little background here. Go through Jay-Z's history a little bit in terms of capitalism versus activism, and then we'll get to his deal with NFL.
So Jay-Z has an interesting rap career, right? Jay-Z has spent most of his career, like a lot of rappers, sort of talking about the ways in which you can better yourselves through capitalism, through making tons of money. I mean, that's part of what makes music great, and a lot of what makes hip hop great is this idea that it's aspirational, right? And Jay-Z has always had these dreams that sort of surpass a lot of what the average rapper had, right? In 2001 on The Blueprint, he rapped about being a 100 millionaire, which at the time was sort of unheard of, right? He was talking about his clothing companies and his businesses and owning Def Jam. And Jay-Z has gone on to be a part owner of NFL teams. And his central goal has been capitalism. And for him, he said in 2013 that his presence is charity. The idea that if he can open doors for himself monetarily, then that can sort of have this Obama effect of allowing people to believe that black folks could be in these rooms, right? The criticism is that Jay-Z has not had as much of a focus on activism as we would like. That has sort of changed in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement when he was doing a lot of things to sort of combat criminal justice. He was sort of helping Meek Mill get out of jail. He was offering lawyers for 21 Savage. He was, really seemingly trying to affect some real change outside of these systems. And it's sort of impacted the way we look at him. We sort of look at Jay-Z as more of an activist. Now, when he does this deal with the NFL to sort of quote unquote bring more social justice to it, it's sort of a twist in the back. I mean, he was wearing Colin Kaepernick jerseys. He was going against the NFL saying, we don't need you. He was telling people not to perform at the Super Bowl. And now he turns around and does this deal. And it's the idea that this is the capitalist Jay-Z rearing his, for a lot of people, rearing his ugly head again.
Yeah, so my guess is, and you talk about this in the article too, like that he, of course he'd defend himself. Although, my God, that comment of my presence is charity, I understand it ideologically, but man, does that sound smug. It sounds unbearable, like I have graced you with my presence. That alone is charity.
Yeah, and I think he sort of realized that later on. I think he sort of has tried to, I think that had a profound impact in his career. I think he saw the backlash to that. And I think that sort of one of the reasons he was trying to be more involved with Black Lives Matter the last few years.
Well, okay, let me actually put it this way, David. So when I look at the whole history of Jay-Z as you laid it out in your article, I thought, I wonder if the activism part was just because that was hot. And it kind of like Nike supporting Colin Kaepernick. It was good for business. And so being like, if he wasn't an activist and didn't support the African American community, it would have been bad for business. And then he lands this monster deal with the NFL to basically whitewash their record. And then you begin to think, well, now when I put it all together, it looks like maybe it was all about business all along.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL deal really sort of has to, make us give Jay-Z's whole career another look. I was somebody who was very critical of Jay-Z for the My Presence is Charity idea, and the idea that he believes that if he makes the most money possible, that will somehow trickle down to the rest of the African American community. But I was leaning away from it. I was sort of, all right, you're doing all this stuff in the last few years. You're providing lawyers in secret to Michael Brown's family and all this stuff. But now you look at the NFL deal and it does lend itself to some cynicism here. Like how much of that was legit? How much of that was Beyonce pushing you to do that? Because we know that Beyonce's record is a little bit different than Jay-Z's. I mean, she's been more prone to these activist movements. And then we wonder if he was just positioning himself for more leverage for a deal like this with the NFL.
Yeah, and that's disconcerting. Now, it doesn't take away the good stuff he did, because that stuff is really valuable, and I'm super glad he did it. So, but last thing about this, David, how much more responsibility do African American athletes, celebrities, etc. have. Because I remember I got upset at LeBron James for not speaking out more when he was in Cleveland and Tamir Rice was shot. Now later he went on to speak out more about other events, right? But I'm like, look, if you sit out a game, everyone in the country is going to talk about Tamir Rice. If you don't say anything, well, Tamir Rice goes away, except for the people who are either in that community or care about that community, right? So, but then on the other hand, is that fair to put on all African American celebrities and athletes?
I don't think it's necessarily fair to put on all the African American celebrities because, I mean, people have to fight their battles as they come to them. I mean, every little bit helps, right? And it's not really fair because we do not put that same pressure on white celebrities when, thinking about the murder of Tamir Rice is a white supremacist structure problem in which white folks need to address just as much as black people. So putting that on black celebrities, I believe is unfair. What makes Jay-Z's position unique is the fact that he had positioned himself as somebody who was sort of anti-NFL and aligned with Kaepernick. He laid in front of the world and made this stance of solidarity. And so doing this is, yes, definitely seems like a betrayal and seems like something that is letting everybody down. But I think in general, we have to sort of allow these celebrities to sort of come to this on their own, and whatever they can do is great. I mean, LeBron James cannot be a catch-all for all of these issues. Whatever he's doing, the school that he does is great. The issue with Jay-Z was that at a time it seemed like he was doing nothing, right? So we have to sort of meet these athletes and these celebrities where they are, but also if we're gonna put pressure on people, I think we need to put pressure on everybody because this is a problem, racism, homophobia, all these things are problems that affect everybody. And I think everybody needs to speak up about it.
Yeah, and I don't want people to get me wrong. LeBron's done some great stuff since then, and it's incumbent on all athletes and anybody with a platform to speak out. He spoke out. Kyle Korver has a brilliant article that he wrote. He's a white basketball player, but he talked about structural racism, et cetera, and what he's learned from his fellow athletes, et cetera. So applaud the folks who do great work. And so David, thanks for joining us, man. Everybody check out David's articles on News One. They're really brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the Young Turks and talking about it.
Oh, for sure. Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, an accomplished state senator in North Carolina decides she's gonna run for US Senate, but the Democratic Party is concerned that she might not have enough cash. Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's talk to her when we come back.
For the darkness. The darkness makes my light shine brighter. Thank you. Thank you very much. So lame. And so old and tired. As old and tired as white supremacy is. But hey, whatever.
I used to be a very conservative person, and listening to TYT, changed my heart because their arguments made sense. If you listen to the argument and make a compelling case and try and listen to what they say, man, it'll change your world too.
TYT is important to me because I know it is a news show that I can trust.
Not only do they give you the facts, but they are upfront and real about their opinions and their quote unquote bias. I mean, they say we're progressive, we're a liberal, and this is what we think about things.
TYT chooses to speak the truth. Period. And I'm so great to be part of the TYT Army now.
This is about building community. All these people, we're all brothers and sisters, and there's just a great deal of love and respect.
Everyone's like a big family, and not just meeting friends, but seeing Cenk in person and seeing John was amazing. And like everybody's just so friendly here. Thanks for letting me find my political family.
Being able to finally meet people who are also ready and willing to do what it takes to make a difference in this country. If you truly believe in something, you have to do something about it. You can't just sit around and talk.
And it really kind of gave me a little bit of hope, you know, because it's like there's all these people out here who agree with me and want to see money out of politics, Green New Deal, Medicare for all. And it's like, it's just really inspiring.
We are bigger than people realize because a lot of people may not know about TYT, but we are huge and we're growing.
It was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. You know, you're in your bubble, you're in your home, you're living your life, and then, you know, all of a sudden you come out here and you're like, oh, I'm not the only one. You know, and you don't know unless you come. So you gotta come, you gotta get involved, you gotta do something.
I've made new friends, and being in an environment where there's like-minded individuals, it's just exhilarating. And the adrenaline rush that you get from feeling this type of, palpable energy in the room and in the march, it's just amazing.
Apathy, AKA the moderates, cannot drive out apathy. You know, lack of love and indifference. Only conviction, AKA the progressives, can do that. Truth New.
Aaron, which one do you like better? What is this? Or what is this? Go.
The Monsanto Corporation continues to sell an herbicide called Roundup. You should know that recent studies have linked this commercial herbicide to a significant increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A diagnosis of this type of cancer can be devastating to you and your family, while Monsanto continues to profit from these sales. If you or a loved one were exposed to Roundup at work or at home and then developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you might be entitled to financial compensation, and you have a right to take action now.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Join me now is Erica Smith. She's a candidate for the United States Senate. She is a current state senator in the great state of North Carolina. Senator Smith, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here. How are you, Jake?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Great. Doing wonderful.
All right. So now you've done a lot of different professions in your life. You're an engineer, you're a teacher,
Yes.
you're a minister, you're a state senator. Okay, so after doing all those professions, why get into politics?
Well, I had a 5-point lesson plan at the time that I wanted to take from the classroom floor to our state capitol floor to show my colleagues how we can fund education and at the same time promote economic expansion in the rural part of North Carolina where I serve.
All right, well, I like that bold plan. And so quick question, how'd you wind up winning?
Well, I unseated the longest sitting Democrat because he had lost touch with the base that he was serving. Having a diversity of experience, I moved back to a rural part of North Carolina after working for the Boeing Company in Seattle, Washington. I was blessed with the skills to be a community advocate, and as a minister in the community, that also helped with in terms of grassroots leadership. And so at the time, I have to say, former Speaker of the House, Tom Tillis, inspired me because at the time he was Speaker of the House when the Republicans took over in North Carolina, and they led an assault on public education. And it was that assault that led me from the classroom floor and serving on the school board in Northampton County to deciding to throw my hat in the ring and win my primary and then the general election in 2014. And it's been history ever since. I'm a hard worker and has had tremendous success as a state senator.
And now you're running against Tom Tillis, but first you got to get past the primary.
Once again, yes,
that's right.
Yes.
And so let's talk about that primary right now. You're one of the more accomplished people in the race in terms of political career. You're a state senator. But it appears, according to reporting, that the Democratic Party is fishing around for other candidates. Let me start with this. How do you feel about that?
Well, it doesn't surprise me because Black women, especially, are underrepresented in politics. And so there are tremendous barriers for Black women, but I don't use that as a limitation for my candidacy. I know that I am the most experienced candidate in the race. I've served longer than the other Democratic primary candidate has since he's been out of office. He hasn't served in elected office in 17 years. And I've been serving consistently nonstop for the last 17 years. So I'm excited about the diversity of experience that I bring from high-tech experience in corporate America. And I know that what I gained navigating corporate America and the business acumen that I have been blessed with is what makes me the leading candidate. And the polls are showing that. I'm not surprised that there are other establishment Democrats looking for another candidate, but this is a new day and we're going to have to do things a new way, not only in North Carolina, but in these United States, if we're going to return integrity, humanity, and common sense advocacy to Washington, D.C.
Okay, Senator Smith, the reporting seems to indicate that the National Democratic Party is concerned about your fundraising ability, that you're not rich enough and you don't know enough rich people.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is what they do all across the country, and they're obsessed with money. They think that's the only thing that matters. But isn't that in a sense racist? And so let me explain why I say that. Because African Americans in this country are born with about 10% of the net worth of white families. And by the way, that's a generous number. And so if the Democratic Party on a national level is saying we are going to always pick the richer candidate, by definition, doesn't that discriminate massively against African Americans across the country?
I agree. There is a wealth gap between African Americans and the predominant culture, but that's because of the systemic holdover from racism. First, let me go ahead and dispel what I feel about wealth. We are a democracy. We are not a plutocracy. We see what having this country run by wealthy people, many whom lack the experience. I won't call out any names, but we have someone who has been in business but filed bankruptcy how many times? And now he's leading the greatest country in the free world. And so there's too much big money in politics. And so these candidates, and that's what's resulted in the failed leadership that we have in Washington, D.C. and in many in our state houses, because money doesn't vote, people do. And I think that at this juncture in our nation's history, we have seen what a plutocracy has done. When we have candidates who are controlled by special interests, they're controlled by dark money. They don't put people first. But when you have a candidate like myself who is governed by principles and putting people first, then we will see the type of leadership that we need to get this nation moving in the right direction.
I would love to see how awkward that Senate caucus room is when you're in there with Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is going around running against, trying to make sure progressives don't win these Senate seats all across the country. So, all right, you don't take corporate PAC money.
I don't.
What are some of your other policy positions?
Well, I have a 6-point lesson plan now because it's higher level. And once again, Tom Tillis has inspired me with his failed leadership. I often say, I don't know whether to call him a Disney character. I have to figure out which one, whether it's going to be Flipper the dolphin or if it's going to be Pinocchio, because he backtracks instead of taking a stand. I mean, even as recently as it relates to Trump's border wall, we have lost $80 million in funding for our military installations. And it's a sad reality when we have our sitting senator not stand by the men and women who defend this country. But my 6-point lesson plan is very brief. It includes economic expansion, education equity, equitable healthcare. Everyone should have access access to free healthcare. And I have to go on about this because you and I, we go to work, we work hard every day, we pay our taxes so that 435 members of the House will have good insurance. We go to work, we pay our taxes so 100 US senators can have good access to healthcare. So if we go to work every day and we pay our taxes so that they can have good healthcare, why can't they go to work to fight for every American to have access to universal health care with prescription drug controls and to make sure that people are not rationing their insulin so that they can put food on the table? We have a lot of work to do as it relates to equal justice, to criminal justice reforms, to make sure that we are not over-incarcerating demographics of people. And so I am a big proponent of equal work for equal pay. As a mechanical engineer in corporate America, we need to make sure that we have men and women with pay parity, but not only between gender pay equity, but we also need to look at demographics because African-American women only earn 61 cents on the dollar of a white male. And last but not least, as an engineer, engineers not only study what is, but they also create that which has never been. And so I have a platform of re-engineering policies for progress. We need to look at this so-called 2018 Tax and Jobs Act that resulted in taking money away from the poor to give the wealthy 1% more. In those re-engineering policies, it includes comprehensive immigration reform, as well as comprehensive gun control. And I'm wearing my orange ribbon. I don't think you can see it, but
yeah, we see it.
It's a sad reality, Jink, when you lose students to gun violence. When at the beginning of a school year, my colleagues, we spend more time with active shooter training than we spend with unwrapping the curriculum so that we can train our students to be successful in life and in career and in college.
Senator Smith, my thesis is that the overall problem is corruption. So whether it's the fossil fuel companies that buy off these US senators and congresspeople, or it's the NRA, we have a pledge called tyt.com/never-NRA that if a politician ever takes money from the NRA, you should never vote for them. Because you could be in favor of gun rights, especially in a state like North Carolina, but we gotta know that you're honest and you're doing it because of the voters and not because you took money from the NRA. So what's your take on that? Having been in state politics, et cetera, how much does those campaign donations corrupt politics?
I feel like they really very much corrupt politics, and that's why we have the corrupt legislators that we have in office now. Let me share this with you. Tom Tillis is one of the top recipients of NRA money. Tom Tillis gets $4.5 million from the NRA. My opponent, Cal Cunningham, has an A rating by the NRA, and he also helped to pass pro-friendly gun legislation when he was in one term of the North Carolina Senate. You know what the NRA gets from me? The NRA gets from me, they get gun control. They get common sense proposals like covering red flag laws, universal background checks. That's what the NRA gets from me. And so what they have given me in return is a zero. In my 3 terms as a North Carolina senator, I have received a grade of 0 from the NRA, and I wear that letter grade, I wear that F with pride, because that means that I want to put the lives and the safety of the public ahead of special interest money. My votes are not for sale. I am unbought and I am unbossed. That's why I have a lot of concern with the powers that be in the establishment sending a lot of money in to get candidates who are not progressive to represent us. We are the big tent party. We are the party of progress. We are the party of inclusion, and we need to start acting like it. And so I am going to fight, and I need everyone else to join us in this fight. It's a lot of grassroots organizations that have come out to support me, and I'm really happy about that, but it's gonna take tons of money. They've placed, the NSRC has placed these billboards showing me with members of the squad. They've started placing them all over North Carolina, and I don't know what their strategy is, but if I'm too liberal because I listen to constituents and place people first, if I'm too liberal because I refuse to accept special interest money, and especially from the NRA, if I'm too liberal because I have an A rating in terms of the environment, I've been Senator of the Year for 2 consecutive sessions by the environmental advocacy groups. And I wear that with pride because I'm for a brighter future for these United States, for fellow North Carolinians, and for this nation as a whole.
All right, I love it. EricaForUs.com is the website, and we will have the links down below to donate and to volunteer. If you don't take corporate PAC money, you need small dollar donations, you need volunteers.
You need tons of them, yes.
Yes, so let's get out there and make that happen. Don't let Chuck Schumer pick these corporate guys with A ratings from the NRA, allies of the NRA. What's the point of getting them in the U.S. Senate if they're just going to agree with Republicans? So Erica Smith, state senator. I love that you went old school on unbought and unbossed.
Unbossed, Shirley Chisholm,
That's
unbought
right.
and unbossed. Our votes are not for sale. Thank you so
exactly
much.
right.
Glad to join you tonight.
Thank you, Erica Smith. We appreciate it.
Take care.
You too. All right. So when we come back, live and free to everybody, John and Anna are going to take your questions on YouTube Super Chat. So get them ready, warm it up. We do different questions sometimes when we're available to everyone. Normally the last half hour is just for members, tyt.com/join, but it'll be available to everybody today. But the questions only come from YouTube Super Chat. All right, fun show for everybody. I'll see you guys on the road soon. All right, be right back.
welcome to the post game. So Cenk had to leave to go to a parent-teacher thing.
But I'm dressed like him, so it's just as good.
A little better, to be honest with you.
Nice.
No,
Thank
I'm
you.
just kidding. Sorry,
I disagree,
Cenk.
but thank you.
But John is kind enough to answer some of the super chat questions with me today. I'm under the weather. I'm like really struggling right now, so I apologize if
I didn't think you'd be here today.
I know.
You were sick yesterday.
So Christian was like begging me to stay home because he doesn't want me to get sicker. But like we have such a small staff. Like Brett has his show today. Brooke had an appearance on the local Spectrum news channel here. And so like me being out puts such a huge burden on you guys. You have your morning show. So if you filled in for me, I mean, I was gonna say you would be here super late, but you are here super late anyway, but it would be even more work. So I was like, I can handle it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Plus I wanted to do the super chat questions. And guys, if you're watching this live and you wanna participate, send in your questions. We're gonna answer as many of them as we can, okay? All right, so I'm gonna start off with Angela's question. And Angela, I recall this question from earlier in the week. I don't know if you're the same person who asked it, but I'll go ahead and answer it anyway. Have you guys read or seen any of the material Robert Reich posts? Any chance we can get him on the conversation? So Cenk answered it, and Cenk's frustration. So Cenk loves the content that Robert posts, but the issue is that he doesn't believe in a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics, and that's really the heart of all of the financial issues that Americans are facing today, the economic issues, I should say. And so if you're not, if you don't understand the importance of doing that, it's so that's Cenk's take. But I'm open to having him on No Filter if the show's theme that week makes sense to have him on as a guest. So that's where I'm at. By the way, check out No Filter. It's a good show.
You should.
All right.
And check out her new opinion piece on The Hill about the economy.
Oh yeah. Yes, it got published. I'm super excited about it. So I really wanted to kind of break down the way the media covers the economy and really give the facts about how it's not just Trump's trade war that's disastrous for the average working American. There are so many other things that Americans are facing today that the media just neglects. So I get into some statistics, and as always, I cite where I have my information from. Please check it out. I hope you guys enjoy it. Kareem says, at what point does the honest politician ask their colleagues on stage to raise their hands if they don't take money from fossil fuel companies? You wanna take this one?
Yeah, so I've kind of, in terms of the primary, I am not looking forward to the dirty part of the primary, but the dirty part can be two different things. It could be whether the candidates are willing to call each other out, which we're not really in. Like, you could probably name all of the times that it's happened so far. That's how rare it is. The dirty part I'm not looking forward to is the ridiculous cults of personality that form online that make any difference of opinion like the worst thing imaginable.
That's already happened, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like 6 months ago. But no, I am ready for the politicians to differentiate themselves more. I think that there should have been much more of that. We had a little bit of it with Bernie and Warren versus the more centrists. But I want to see Bernie and Biden, and I want Bernie to bring up his record.
Oh, that's gonna be nice.
And so in terms of like where you're getting your funding from, that's a great way to differentiate it.
Absolutely, and I gotta give Anderson Cooper credit for the way he handled the Biden portion of the climate town hall, because he did hold Biden accountable when it came to the fundraisers he was gonna go to, the fossil fuel fundraisers and all that. And it is important to call these politicians out because the corruption is front and center of so many of our problems.
Yeah.
So let's move on. So the SR Conan asks, will Nancy ever push for impeachment, or is she playing it safe, running down the clock until the election? I don't think she's gonna push for, I'm not crying, I'm sick, I'm sorry.
We were sad because there's not gonna be impeachment.
Jesus, I look really bad.
You look sad, that's all.
I think, I'm not sad, I'm actually in a really good mood.
About like, we're gonna get to 2020, we'll beat him at the ballot box if there's a country still to vote.
I don't think she's gonna impeach him. I think she's been pretty clear about that. Yep. It's an act of cowardice.
Yeah.
Because, look, above all, it sends a message to Trump and others like him that if you get elected as president and you happen to be a Republican, you are above the law. Democrats are so weak, Democratic leadership specifically is so weak that they will not hold you accountable. And that really does embolden the behavior that we see with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think that he's only ever learned one lesson in his whole life, and that lesson was, oh, so I can do whatever I want? Cool, and he is.
He is, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he just broke the law again this week by changing or altering the National Weather Service map to make it appear as though the storm's path was gonna hit Alabama.
Yeah.
That is breaking the law.
Yeah, and it's the silliest law that he's broken, but in terms of movement of, like when he was telling the people, just build the wall, don't care about the laws, I'll give you pardon if you break the law, but that is incredibly significant.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. All right, so let's move on to, a lot of these are for Cenk, but who cares, let's answer them anyway.
We can speak for him.
H Gaming asks, Cenk, your anger and impressions are cathartic. It's given voice to the frustration that's been building at the nonsense these past few years. So that's fascinating because sometimes, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna talk about that from my perspective. Sometimes I get a little worried that I don't know, that some people might be turned off to it, that it comes across, I don't really care, right? I do care when it takes up too much time in the show and I'm trying to get through the actual facts, right? Like there needs to be balance. But I do worry that at least some portion of the audience gets turned off by it and might think it's juvenile or whatever.
I mean, I would assume that the audience likes it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably one part of why they're the audience. Yeah, it is interesting. Like I can hear it out there sometimes. I'm at my desk. Like this is a soundproof studio, closed door on the other side of the building. I can't necessarily hear the words, but I can hear, oh, he's doing his mocking, like I'm the media now, whatever. Yeah, so that's always interesting.
He does it a lot, he gets super animated. I'd like to think that we balance each other out okay, pretty well, I don't know.
I just want to mention briefly, I think it was a conversation I was having with you. I think he's been doing this for years, but I only really noticed it like a month or two ago. He was sitting here, I was sitting right there, and he was on this tear, this rant, and I realized he's done like 12 impressions back to back. He's the media, now he's an establishment politician, now he's Nancy Pelosi, now he's Chuck Schumer, now he's Donald Trump, he's back to the media. I was like, this is like a one-man play happening right here.
Yeah, he gets very animated,
yeah.
And he's passionate, and I think that passion-
yeah, it was passionate.
That passion definitely attracts people.
I think so.
Because there's so much, I mean, think about it. And one of my favorite things that Cenk has said lately is that the American public is being gaslit by journalists, right? Because Trump is doing crazy stuff and the media will not like acknowledge that he's doing crazy stuff in some cases, right? And so I'll use the simplest example. He lies over and over and over again. And for the longest time, journalists refused to call him a liar.
Yeah.
So think about how that makes you feel like you're crazy because you're like, but he just lied. Are they gonna say he's a liar? And then they don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with that.
I thought that was a great point.
Yeah.
But I will say on this topic, go read my recent opinion piece in The Hill on how the media can save itself before Donald Trump destroys it from last week. It was all about media bias and the flaws of the media.
Funny inside baseball about your piece. So Cenk has been trying to encourage a few of us on-air people to write op-eds and get them published. And I'm so overwhelmed and busy. And I kept thinking to myself, I want to do it, but every time I get home from work, I'm exhausted and I just want to pass out. So I would never get it done. And then you published yours, and I was like, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm competitive, and it's like it's friendly competitiveness. It's not like I love John, but when I saw it, I was like, John works hard too. If John can do it, I can do it. Why aren't I doing it, right? Like, so
I can take that MFer down.
Like my way of getting competitive is getting kind of hard on myself, like you moron, you could have done this too, why didn't you do it? So like that's the way I think about it. I get inspired and it motivated through it. So I'm really glad that you did it because it lit a fire under my butt.
For mine, it's mostly, I just want to write. Like my whole life growing up, I was like, you're gonna be a writer someday, right, John? And I've written so little, and I'd like to write another novel, but that takes a long time. But an op-ed, that's short. So I procrastinate from the big writing thing by doing the little writing thing. And it was fun.
Yeah.
I have an idea for a book that basically is a whole bunch of little op-eds. And so this was like practice to get me in the mode to write that.
All right, so I knew we would have a few combative questions, which is totally fine, and I don't mind them at all. Rory Fansler asks, I'm wondering why you ignore brand new Congress. John mentioned them once at least. So I'm not purposely ignoring them. I gotta be honest, there's so much going on in any given day. So if I don't talk about something or if I don't mention something, don't automatically assume that it's an intentional decision, right? So yeah, so it's not, I really don't have anything against brand new Congress. There's no reason why I haven't talked about them. But if there's a story or if there's something specific that you guys want us to talk about, feel free to tweet us, feel free to message us, any way that you can get in contact with us and let us know. And I would love to cover that. You know, I have nothing against covering them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We obviously we have this connection with Justice Democrats, and I know a lot of the candidates, which is why I sort of like, I'm thinking, okay, I want to profile some candidates. I'll talk to them, see who they've got. It's just sort of I mean, I really like the organization. It's not in any way meant to denigrate any of the other organizations.
And look, there's also a difference. I think there's a difference between the two of us, and this has been a long-standing difference, and I don't think the audience has any idea about it. John loves the horse race politics stuff. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. You love the election stuff, right? And I don't know what it is about me. It's not that I don't like those stories. I like policy. I'm like obsessed with policy. So I gravitate more toward what are the proposals, what are they saying, you know? And so the electoral stuff, I think, is more in John's wheelhouse. It doesn't mean I'm ignoring it. It's just that we did have different passions and I might have a blind spot. So thank you for letting me know about that. All right, so let's go to Andrew Williams, who has a great question. My question is about Venezuela. I'm Venezuelan and I have a lot of family in Venezuela. I actually have family in Venezuela too, on my dad's side.
I do not.
When people on the left constantly support the Maduro regime and the Bolivarian revolution as if it was an actual leftist movement as opposed to a weaponization of leftist rhetoric to institute the kleptocracy, it infuriates me. How can we solve this problem on the left? Andrew, I don't know. And it's frustrating. The Venezuela story, especially like, you know, we covered it obviously. There are extremes on both sides, as there often is with political issues. And it's as if criticizing Maduro somehow means that you are encouraging the United States to invade Venezuela. I'm very clear and on the record, I do not support invading Venezuela. And I was very clear in the videos that we did on the story. But at the same time, I know what's going on with Maduro, right? I know how much people in Venezuela are struggling, and I know how much, I mean, I know about the things that he's done, especially because I have family members there. And I had a conversation with a few of them because I wanted to get their take on whether or not they consider Maduro a dictator. Because I called him a dictator on the show once, and then some people were offended by that and they thought that's not right, he's not a dictator. So I asked my family members, they're on the ground, they know what it's like there. And they're like, yeah, calling him a dictator goes too far, but we are really suffering. This is not some sort of like leftist utopia that some in the US are making it out to be, which I thought was a fair analysis of what's really going on. So I really appreciate that question. I can't change other people's minds on it. I mean, it's been an ongoing debate, and there are some components of the left that just refuse to acknowledge that Maduro is not a good person.
I think I only did a couple of videos about Venezuela. I don't even know if there were, like, and this might actually frustrate the person sending the question, I don't even know if there was clear criticism of Maduro. Basically, all my coverage was, here's what's happening, let's not have a war with them. That was literally it. And despite that being the only coverage I had, I got tweets and still get tweets that I was pushing for war in it.
I know.
When literally the only thing I said in the videos was, I have no interest in any sort of military conflict there. So it can be frustrating, especially when it comes to international stories. Generally, people in the media, and I would say even especially in online media, don't talk about it very much. We have a focus on domestic stuff. But my issue is One of the reasons it doesn't get talked about very much is that most people who do this sort of thing, where they sit and they make a video and they turn it into bites, they put it on the internet, have effectively no information about the internal politics of any of these countries, which should induce a level of humility in talking about it. But very often, if it feels like there's some narrative that you can tie this country that you don't know about into something that you say about the US, we'll just do that and feel very confident about it. I don't feel confident talking about countries that I don't know anything about, and so generally I avoid it, or I bring in an expert from that country, I have them Skype in from wherever. When I do talk about another country, it's because I feel like I do have knowledge about that place.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be more self-awareness. Like you would have your mind blown if you knew how little research some people do before talking about the internal workings of other countries.
I know, and by the way, look, we're not perfect. So I do know that we got something wrong when we covered that story, and it was the mainstream media put out a doctored video. I don't remember the specifics, but we reported on that video not knowing that it was doctored.
Was it the truck thing?
Yes, it was the truck video.
I do vaguely remember that.
And look, we got it wrong. We should have been more skeptical of that video. And we corrected ourselves and apologized, and that's the right way to go about it. But there's no ill will in the way that we cover these stories. But I can be clear about what I want, and what I want is to avoid a military conflict with Venezuela. At the same time, I think it's wrong to belittle and minimize the suffering of the Venezuelan people and pretend as though Maduro is this great guy. He is not a great guy, and people are suffering there with insane inflation, lack of resources, lack of access to food. It's out of control. People are suffering, and that is not some American mainstream media narrative. That is actually happening. All right, let me see. How much more time do we have? We ran out of time.
That went by really fast.
Anyway, thank you for your questions,
guys.
guys.
The conversation went over. I feel like we lost some time.
Yeah, it totally did, which doesn't surprise me. But thank you for your questions, guys. I want to do this more often, so we're going to be answering more of your questions during post-game shows. Again, thank you, and thank you to John for stepping in for Cenk. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you soon.